Yeah, we're live. Hi, guys. Oh, man.
You haven't shopped around until you've tried Yui.
The iconic Subway footlong sub, because we know size matters. Jesus was on a mission when he was here, so he didn't get involved with a. Okay, so they're operating at a higher law. So these things are going to start coming out because they're being forced to do this. And why would they say, "Take me to your leader"? In other words, if they don't even look anything like the image of God, because we are the image of God. Okay, so they don't look like us. Jesus never mentioned that he died for any.
Hi, Doreen. How are you, Mike? Good to see
We
you.
are it. But I need to tell you all this because next year, and especially 2026, they're going to release a lot of this stuff. And when they do,
Hey, Bill. Good to see you, mate.
so getting into this next session, we talked about faith, and we realized that faith is more about trust in a relationship. You understand a couple of things about Jesus that you won't pick up today in the rhetoric is that Jesus was on a mission when he was here, so he didn't get involved with a lot of things that you think he would get involved with. So he had a lot of things going on in Israel and in Jerusalem, right? The country was taken over by Rome. There were foreign soldiers in the land. So Rome was there, centurions were there, and soldiers, right? Okay, we got Herod, we got Pilate, we got all these players there. He didn't address those people until he had to, and so you got to remember some things about Jesus is that he was sent to certain people, the lost sheep of Israel, right? So even if a Gentile or somebody like the Samaritan woman or the centurion, he said, I'm sent to these people, but his people rejected him, right? But those two people, the Samaritan woman and the centurion, they got his attention, but they got his attention because they expressed faith, right? That's what Jesus said. So you have the Samaritan woman who is, they called them half-breeds. So they actually literally had a temple built, and they said that God is with them. And that's why the woman at the well was arguing with Jesus about, you say the Jews have their temple and all this. We have. He says, woman, there's coming a time where, we're not going to worship God on this mountain or that mountain. We're all going to worship God in spirit and in truth. So there was a separation of the Samaritans. And then, of course, there was the infiltration of another country, Rome, into Italy into that area, and they had taken it over. Everybody understand that? But Jesus didn't come against Rome. He didn't come against Herod. And if you remember when John the Baptist was grabbed and taken, and then was in jail, Jesus, it doesn't say that Jesus went and even saw him. And when he was beheaded, Jesus didn't come to his defense. These are things that we have to see. So what was the thing that Jesus said to the centurion that we need to get so we can go on to the next session here? When we're talking about faith, we think it's one thing, but according to Jesus, we got to bring him into it. Think about it. The centurion, who is not under the covenant, has no track record whatsoever, is infiltrated. He is an infiltrator. He is not.
Hi, Shelley. I'm just going to get out the room where I can talk to you.
City. He's in Jesus'
I'm streaming in my bedroom.
He said, You know,
hang on.
my servant,
I've got to grab my key card, my
child
Medicare
that's
card.
sick or needs
Because I'm
healing.
gathered on need that. Are you there?
And Jesus says,
Okay, hang
I'll
on.
come. And the centurion says, no, you don't have to come. He said, I'm a man under authority and I'm in authority.
How do we do it, please?
Okay, he starts talking about authority. Is everybody listening to me? Because you got to get this.
Yeah, that's fine.
Jesus was amazed that this man said, you just give the word, just speak the word and it'll be done. He said, I'm under authority and I am a man in authority. I am told what to do and then I tell my men what to do. And Jesus equated that explanation of authority with great faith. This is not being taught at all. But you got to understand that he had not found that great a faith in all of Israel. And the same with the Samaritan woman. The Samaritan woman said, listen, I know I'm not under the covenant, but I'll take the crumbs. I'll take anything left over. And her desire and hunger for what Jesus was giving out was greater than the people that he had been sent to give it to. Do you understand that? There was a hunger that superseded the covenant. And there was an understanding of authority that superseded the covenant. In the centurion, so you see the centurion understood authority that superseded, his understanding of authority superseded the covenant. Okay, so Jesus stepped outside the boundaries and gave those two women, that man and the woman, those two people, what they asked for, and said that they had great faith. But they weren't in covenant. So this is the secret that I obtained by being with Jesus for that 45 minutes. The secret I obtained is that it all had to do with being fully convinced of him, and then entering into a relationship with him where I'm accountable, and then miracles start to happen. But they happen ahead of me and without me. And they happen behind me without me. It's like it's coincidence. It's like it's collateral. It's like collateral things happening just because he tells me, go here, do this, say this, sell this, buy this. I'm just obeying, and there's collateral. The miracles are ahead of me and behind me and around me, but it is not me. I don't know if you get this or not. Do you? Well, nod your head. I know you get it. But in order to go on from here, it's going to be shock and awe. It's going to literally be shock and awe from that. I mean, shock and awe. I mean, you're going to say every day, I didn't see that coming. And it's going to humble you. I'm telling you, I'm seeing things happen in my own personal life that I didn't have faith for. And I'm humbled because immediately when God does something that's beyond, I realized I didn't even have faith for it, and I was actually doubting. When God starts to come in, one of the things that happens in a person's life is the revelation of his goodness. Okay, Paul, if you notice, I don't know if you notice, you can even ask Alexa and Siri. Paul did not preach on hell. He believed in hell. But, even Alexa and Siri, how often do they go to church? But in his writings, because the Lord had put that on my heart, Paul preached the goodness of God. And he said in Romans 2 that it's the revelation of the goodness of God that leads people to repentance, not preaching of eternal damnation.
Lunchtime cravings kicking in? Relieve them with Nicorette, the #1 stop smoking brand in Australia.
Okay. See up there.
What if you could send money overseas in seconds? Oh, and at great rates. Off it goes.
I have no idea. Yes, hang on. 28004.
I don't know why God chose Buffalo for me to just kind of like rip up the rug and everything, you know. But the thing, I don't know why. But New York is loved by God too, just like everybody else in Canada. But this is the thing is I have sat for many years and listened to every message you've heard. You know, I have been taught by the best and the worst. I have given to the best and the worst. You know, Kathy and I have labored, you know, just as a married couple to do the right things when it was hard. We both worked very hard for 30 years. But at that point, when he told us that we could retire, we were relieved because we had worked very hard. And so we had our dream home in a dream place, you know, the best of the best in Seattle, Washington. And we were fine. But as soon as I retired and Kathy left her business, the Lord said, by the way, retire means buy a new set of tires and hit the road. So he retired us, which means he gave us a new set of tires. And so it's a switch, but it was like a shock and awe thing, right? And then he said, sell your dream home, sell all your homes. In fact, give your car away, give all your furniture away. So we actually literally took our clothes in 30 boxes and FedExed them to where the Lord told us to move to. And then after that, we had cameras that we had purchased from working. We had my first books. We purchased them, self-published them, and bought a semi full of books. The guy goes, what are you going to do with all these? We just put them in our garage. Our garage became our warehouse. Our house became our bookstore.
That would work perfectly.
And we hit the road, but we didn't charge. We paid for our own airfare, our own hotels. We had already bought our books. Kathy did the book table. I did the preaching. I did the music. She did the packing and the unpacking. And it was just Kathy and I. And then somebody would come and say, hey, I want to help you. I go, what does that mean? You know, because all of a sudden, you know, like I'm thinking, okay, where was all this help? Because nobody got the email. When I came back from this experience, I knew I was God's favorite. I knew it. I mean, Jesus treated me like I was his favorite. And everybody else hadn't gotten the email. So I had years of like, I had probably 8 years of just trying to readjust to what had happened to me and what I'd been shown and how things were all rigged in my favor and all these different titles that you read. God showed me all this, but I thought, well, I don't know anybody. So we had to just like, it didn't.
I just had a doctor ring me over the phone, a doctor's appointment. That's why I had to take it outside the room, guys.
Just happened.
We
worked extra. So what we did was we would go and buy 10 Thanksgiving dinners and put them in frozen turkey and all the fixings, and we'd put them in boxes. And we would hand them over to our church.
Hey, Roy, good to see you.
And say, listen, at the Wednesday service or the Sunday prior to Thursday, can you give these to 10 people in the church that are not going to have Thanksgiving unless they get this, that have kids? I said, can you just do this off the record as they're saying goodbye the Sunday prior, or if they had a Wednesday service? So that's what we did. Yeah, that's good. Okay. It took 2 years before the church caught on that they should be doing it.
Diane, with the Super Bowl, I wonder what ritual they're going to do now. I wonder what they're going to do.
Okay, but then it caught on, right? So then at Christmas time, Kathy and I would say, and we just did this last week.
Thanks, Ryan.
We just pick our family and say, we're just going to give our Christmas away. So we decide, okay, we're only going to buy this amount for each other, and we're going to donate all the money that we would spend, and we're going to give it to a family that's not going to be able to have Christmas unless we do something about it. So we just wrote that check to that family 2 weeks ago. Now, I'm not bragging. I mean, it sounds like I'm bragging because you're supposed to do it in secret. The only thing is that Paul would do things to spur people on to good works.
That's
and
true.
So I'm
yeah.
not bragging. I'm saying, listen, we should all be doing this, whether it's in secret or not. My reward is if you do it. If I do it, yeah, okay, I told you, so I lose my reward. Big deal. So I lose 10 Thanksgiving dinners and a Christmas tree full of gifts. Okay, big deal. But if you do it, all of you do it, that's my reward because I sowed the word to you. But I told you this is how God works. You do something for somebody that can't pay you back. And then God, because it says in Proverbs that he who gives to the poor lends to the Lord. It doesn't say give to the Lord. He who gives to the poor lends to the Lord. That means God is in debt, which he can't be in debt. All right, Selah, we need to have music playing. You need to think about this for like that. Now think about that. When you give to the poor, you lend to the Lord, and it says he pays great dividends. That's what Solomon said. Okay, so we don't think about this, but I do because I met Jesus, and this is how it works. He said, you get me to get off my throne. You do something, and he says, and then I will not be in debt.
What's that mean?
So he said, find children, find single parents, find everybody that's poor, which is, most of the United States, except for 5%. Right. So you find people to do things for. Now you can still give, you can still tithe, you can do all that stuff. This is something that I think is missing. Is that I've heard a lot of like prosperity messages where they always quote, well, you'll always have the poor among you. Give to me and then you'll get my anointing. I hear that all the time. And that to me is like swearing. To me, I mean, like, what? What? You can't. Can you imagine who would ever vote for somebody as president if they were going to forget the public? Like, I'm not talking about the elite. I'm talking about the 5%. What about people that can't afford groceries, or fuel? So if you notice the exit polls for CNN, they say that there was a disconnect that when they had the exit polls, 22,000 people, they said the reason why they voted for the person who won is because they wanted the value of their life to come back, the cost of living to go down. They wanted groceries. They said they didn't want sexual things like the transgender. They said they don't want abortion things. They said they want groceries, they want fuel. They want to buy. The number 3 was, I want to own a house. A lot of the young people said, well, they're telling me I won't ever own a house. So CNN, I mean, that on there, the king of the fake news, they say, listen, there's a disconnect and we need to start looking at the disconnect because we missed it. I'm thinking news is supposed to be neutral, and he's saying we. So he's a Democrat. I'm like, well, what? Forget this black and white. And I mean, if you look, that's white. I'm not white. That's white. This is ridiculous. This is all like, this is just getting us the division. Whereas, honestly, Jesus Jesus didn't say, well, you'll always have the poor among you. He wasn't saying that will give to me. When did he ever say? When did he ever take an offering? He never took an offering. Because
That's a good point. I've never thought about that. He never took an offer.
people gave to him. Paul. People gave to Paul and all the apostles. But it wasn't this arm twisting thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't this manipulation, right? Okay, so going forward, the shock and awe that you're going to see is you're going to be shown that God does things because he's good. And that we're going to get back into this idea that, listen, in all of our seeking knowledge, Solomon said, make sure you get understanding. Okay, so if I can quote you all this data, but I don't understand it, you could be impressed that I can quote all this. Just like if somebody quotes the Bible but doesn't know how to live it, or it doesn't have it happen in their life, what good is it? It has to be applicable. It has to be. So if there's a disconnect, which there is, there's a disconnect where you see me on Sid Roth and you think, okay, I wish I could have that happen. I want to go in and get my teeth operated on. So then nothing happens except you get the bill, right? Okay. I was told by Jesus that this was a decision made by the Trinity. That the reason why that happened to me was because the Trinity decided that God would intervene in my life and then send me back, even though I would have never got sent back. He said he intervened because he was a good God and he wanted to influence a generation. So he said he's going to do this with other people too as well. So in his goodness, it wasn't because I had done anything. He said it was completely a meeting that the Trinity had, and they decided that they were going to do this. Had nothing to do with me at all. My giving, my non-giving, my suit, the type of car I had, the job I had, nothing.
No
It
way.
was slated. He said, he used the word slated. He said, you were to die today.
Wow, Di, every single day you post something where food processed plants are shutting down or being recalled. Wow, they're really setting you up for the famine. Wow. It's
He
bad.
said, but I'm sending you back. And he said, don't defend your experience ever. He said, tell them what you saw and what you heard. And he said, you will change a whole generation. And he sent me back. That's it. Now listen, I just want
The cultural protest against the 2 million donuts, they'll lose their donuts, so they'll protest that.
in for the same operation, and I got to go Tuesday again. I just went 2 weeks ago, and then he said you got to come back. And same thing. They put me under. No Jesus. No Jesus last week. He appeared to me in a dream the night before. He said, I'm not going to appear to you during the operation, but I'm going to tell you this right now. And he went through everything. And so when I went there, I paid to have myself put out. And no Jesus. I woke up and Kathy drove me home because you do not want me to drive after that anesthesia, right? Hey, nothing. So now I'm going to go back in Tuesday again. And I can just tell you, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, I remember him. That guy. Like fat as you, or all bodies are beautiful.
A life pro tip that's mega helpful. Ethical nutrient.
Because everything that was supposed to happen has already happened. Now it's my responsibility to preach and to teach and to influence a whole generation, correctly. However, all of us need to pick this up and do this. Part of it is the revelation of the goodness of God. So I don't tell people they're going to hell. Most of them think they're in hell already. Right? They think this is hell. Some people want to go to hell because they think it's a party.
Yeah. Anton LaVey thought that. He thought he was going to party. Found out the hard way how wrong he was.
So people are deceived.
And that's why the celebrities follow Satan. They think they're going to party down in hell because that's what he's told them.
And so it doesn't matter, like, if you try to convince them. The Spirit of God has to unveil. So the very thing we need in our lives to help that unveiling is diminished because we don't understand the working of the Spirit. So God comes in and he's about to do it again. He's already doing it. We're having people, just this last week, people healed of unbelievable things. Like things that, and it nobody can get credit for it. I mean, they are sitting. I mean, I can remember this one person. She came during we just had graduation in Charlotte, and she just published. I mean, all I did was have a word. She published the record. She said, "I'm completely healed of my blood disease." Well, I didn't lay hands on her. In fact, that week I had just had that operation. I needed hands laid on me. And I'm in pain now because I got to go back in. Okay, why didn't God heal me? Well, why did it even happen to begin with? Why did he make teeth that have to be replaced? I don't know. It's a fallen world, right? But I had people who have had their fillings filled supernaturally. But I need it done myself. I've had people healed of the knee injury I have, and I still limp. It doesn't stop me because God is doing these things. And it's really more about what he knows than what we know. Okay, so if he says, if you lend to him because you've given to the poor, and he pays great dividends, and I expect a great return because we've given away 120 musical instruments a month all year. So how many is that? Like in a whole year, so you got 120,000, like 100, 10 months of 120, you got 1,200 instruments, right? Or more. Okay, so we give away books and money. We have you seen the money portals? Put the kids in those machines and blows money and they get 30 seconds. These are all single parent kids. They get 30 seconds. I don't know why God told me to do that, but he told me to do that. But I've had people get saved. They come to me later and say, I was sitting in the back row, and when you did that, I repented and became a Christian. And they're also partners now. But I don't know why I did that. I knew it was going to stir it, it's going to stir the nest, right? But the kids, they deserve to have a revelation of the goodness of God. I went without an instrument all my life because my dad and my mom couldn't afford it. That will not happen on my watch, right? The first time I touched an airplane was at 25 years old. First time I flew one was in my 30s. I didn't become a captain until 60 years old. That'll never happen on my watch with kids if they want to be a pilot. So you can understand that the understanding of authority and the understanding of the fact that your hunger will supersede even covenant. And your understanding of authority gets you into a place where God is going to move, not based on your performance, not based on even your own understanding. It's based on the fact that he's good and he draws near to those who are hungry and who understand that he's God and you're not. Authority. I never go to God and tell him what to do, ever. In fact, I don't even ask for things until he brings it up. I don't.
He's shown a lot of waste, hasn't he, Diane, with that USAID stuff? Wow, who ever thought it was that bad?
No, I might say, how are you going to pay for this? But I don't like take it on myself. Why? Because partnership. Peter understood it. He said we're partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that's in the world caused by lust. He understood how we escape the corruption. It was through what? Precious promises. It says precious promises. Through the precious promises that we become partakers of the divine nature. So if you don't know the precious promises, which is not one of them is you're going to hell if you don't behave, right? If you don't turn. Now we know that message is preached, right? And we know that that's valid. What was John's message? Repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. But when Jesus came, he said, my Father's a good Father. If you ask him for bread, he's not going to give you a stone. The revelation of the Father was through Jesus Christ, and then Paul, his revelation as well. So we receive this message based on the fact that Jesus fulfilled the whole law, and then he preached the Father and the Spirit of God. Then Paul came and he preached that we are one with the Father, we are one with Jesus Christ, we are one with the Spirit, and that we as the body now. So every time the word you is mentioned in the letters of Paul, it's plural. It's not singular. But culture teaches us to be selfish and to think about ourselves, and that's just the way it is. But you can see how government has become that way, selfish and self-serving. So then all of a sudden now we have that revelation that what's the real agenda? So every time you hear somebody talk, you think, well, what's the angle here? And every time somebody wants something from you, you're like, well, what's your angle? Or, when they want to help you, it's like, well, what's in it for you? That's the first thing I want to ask. What's in it for you? Because most people just don't do, Kathy and I worked for churches. We never received a salary. We were there sometimes more than the staff. We were pastors and never took a salary. We worked extra to pay our bills and to pay everybody else's bills. We would go through the parking lot of the church and see whose tires were bald, and we would buy them tires. And we just go to work. And we were pastors. And so then I realized, what has happened to our society, and has it gotten into the church? Have we become the
Diane, is it playing right now, the Super Bowl, is it?
corporation? Okay, in the mentality. I know there's laws and the legal things, and we have many lawyers that, they keep us exactly right with the IRS every single day. Every day. They're looking at everything. But they're the best. They say, you can do this, you can't do this. And we're completely submissive to that. However, I'm not going to deal with you the way the government deals with you. Because the government was never supposed to be this powerful. The church was supposed to be this. Okay, so what's going to happen is God's going to start healing people. And there's not going to be any reason for it. And something's going to interrupt your finances. And you're like, I have no idea what happened. And God's going to say, good. He's going to start to show himself as God, because this is the next stage of what has just happened in the world and in this country. It is something where the church prayed and we cut off the puppet master. Okay, but it's only one. Right, okay, yeah. But the thing of it is the puppet master is very upset right now because all the little strings are cut and they're about to get even more. Now, when that happens, things that you didn't really see are going to.
I saw that Trump's the only president sitting president that's gone to the Super Bowl. They made a bit of a big deal. Oh, that'd make the ritual even more important. Let's see if it relates to Bow, because that's what the Trump Tower is, a homage to Bow.
Be exposed. And when they are exposed, are you ready for the truth of it? It's because you've been lied to. And you have been targeted. I don't know if you're ready for everything that's going on. So I do this in my coffee talks. I'm going to unveil some stuff here. This is the engine that our jets use right now. So this is a technology.
Help keep tiny tummies comfy on the inside. Only A2 will do. With Vodafone's high-speed home internet plans, you come face to face with speed that'll blow you away. Supercharge your home from just $50 a month for 6 months with the broadband provider of the year, Vodafone.
I got real life insurance to protect us financially. You can choose up to $2 million cover. Click to request a quote now.
Say goodbye to expensive scratch repairs once and for all. This groundbreaking car spray will make your car look brand new without costing a fortune.
So this is based on fossil fuel, right? So this engine has a whole bunch of stages. This is actually from a 777. I'll move so you can all see it. But the 777 is, you can walk through this engine. But our engines on our jet are smaller, but it's the same kind of principle. This just has more stages in it of compressions. So we have a couple compression areas in our engines, but this has, I see 5 here, and I see 5 here. And you got the intake, the air intake. So it's based on this atmosphere and air, and you have air that is really cold up there. 66 below yesterday coming in. We were 8 miles up at 45,000 feet. We're coming in at about 550 miles an hour, 66 below. And we even had trouble keeping our feet warm up there in the cockpit. We were messing around with everything. And so 66 below, that's centigrade. It comes out the back here, 600 degrees centigrade. So you got, like in our engines, about 6 or 7 feet, it changes that much. So a lot of things are happening in there, and the technology, the way we do it, but it's based on laws that are lower laws, physical laws. Okay, so you don't understand like why you weigh what you do, because you weigh yourself and you can't understand why you weigh what you do. But what's happening is that certain laws are in effect, and essentially, regardless of what you think or don't think, or what you ate or don't eat, or all that, the bottom line is that 32 feet per second doesn't lie, and that's gravity. Okay, it's the same thing with everything else. Everything else is based on laws that are just here. So if those laws they exit, they don't exist anymore, or they're negated by some higher law, then you'll see changes. So until things change, things are going to be this way. So it doesn't matter, what you think. There's certain things that you're restricted to. However, there is so much more that used to be before the flood, before the fall. So, for example, you see colors, but that's only 1/6 of light. So the rainbow colors is 1/6. So there is 5/6 that you don't see that still exists. And technology, like I talk about science, we have data, we gather data. Science is observation, it's gathering data. It's supposed to be neutral. So you just gather data. So if you see 1/6 of light, then 5/6 is there, but you don't see it. But it doesn't go away just because you don't see it. So science has developed other ways to see into spectrums. So what happens is, as technology increases, we have other ways of measuring the fact that something is present or not present. So there's a lot of technology available, and you have some of this even on your phone. And you also have some of it in your cameras, security cameras and things like that, that pick up differences in heat. But now with FLIR, you have these pods, like Captain Chris here used to fly the F-18, but the pods, he would love to have the pods that they have now. But once they got those pods on there, it measures white light and black light, different kinds of light, and it measures, and you can flip through them, and it'll cause the differences of light or heat, so that all these other spectrums are become visible that were not visible. So that's what just happened. So then you have these guys appearing before Congress and saying, listen, these things don't have this type of propulsion, but they weren't visible. These guys have said, listen, when we got these pods, these new pods underneath, there's this equipment that can see in these other spectrums, these things became visible to us, but they were always there. Okay, they became visible, and then we have those films that you see, but they don't have wings, and they don't. If you've looked to just, I encourage you. A lot of these people that are appearing before Congress, I have known about these people or know people that know them, and I know for 30 years the stuff that they're saying, but I couldn't say it. Now I can say it because they're saying it, and they can go to jail. I can't because they've already said it. But they're saying things that this turn that they did was 3,000 Gs. Okay, so Chris, I think you've done what, 9 Gs, and he barely stays awake. No, I do. I think I did 6.5, and I was just barely awake. So an airplane with a pilot in it can withstand 9 Gs. The airplane itself can withstand 16 or 17 Gs. Like an F-16, the structure can do 17, but not 2,000. So they said these things did right angle turns at over 1,000 miles an hour, and the G-force was a couple of thousand Gs. They would disappear and reappear, but the pods showed them just scooting really fast. They didn't really disappear. The light from our eyes made it look like they became invisible. You got that? Okay. So they're operating at a higher law. So these things are going to start coming out because they're being forced to do this. So we've known for a long time, and
Okay, it's just 3 weeks old, guys.
it just threw. When I found out everything 30 years ago, I threw it all away because I mean, people that were talking to me end up in jail, and some people are gone. I don't know where they went. I can't. They were never born. They were my friends. I work with them, and they're literally no birth certificate. So what happened to them? But now the things that are being said to Congress, they told me 30 years ago. Okay, so what they were saying to me was, Kathy and I could hardly accept it. But now it's common knowledge. Now the scientists are coming forward, and they're starting to say, well, yeah. And so the understanding of gravity has become classified. And so the things that are being put out there are dead ends, like the string theory. If you start to look at these theories, they have dead ends. And so it was a rabbit hole. Now listen to me. The real idea is that there are higher laws, and if you introduce material that is not from this particular time on the Earth, if you introduce something that has isotopes and bond, a stronger electromagnetic field that is produced by a bond or electrons. So the person who worked on these that talked to me when it happened, he had material that was on a periodical chart up at 115, which we were only at barely 100. And it didn't exist, but he said, no, it exists, and it has 64 electrons. I'm like, well, we only have 12 or 14 or 16 at the most on this Earth as far as the electronic bond in an atom. He said, no, this is way more than that, and that's what operates these craft. And it was hard to believe. He said, you can bend time and space. You can bend it And it doesn't take you any time to go long distances because you essentially bend the whole highway. So you scoot along and you pretty much arrive before you leave. I'm like, what? That sounds spiritual to me. And then it took me 30 years to figure this out. So the bottom line is this, is that the realms used to be accessible to us. And you see this in the different things that are on the earth that cannot be built today because of the way the magnetic field is and gravity is. However, if you have these substances that are of higher bond, it literally causes gravity to be negated, which means you can eliminate drag, which is what they do. And you can go along the fabric of space. There's a gravity, it's a wave. And you can ride that wave. And if I had time, I could show you. I don't have my TV. If I come back, we'll get the whole the graphics and everything. I'll show you these engines that they have, and how you can ride on a gravity wave. And literally, what you see and what they experience are two different things. Because it takes 12 years to come from a close star system at 186,000 miles a second. The speed of light, you have to travel 12 years. Well, what creature or whatever would want to go and play with us and then go back and travel 12 years here and 12 years back just to mess with us? And why would they say, take me to your leader? In other words, if they don't even look anything like the image of God, because we are the image of God. Okay, so they don't look like us. Jesus never mentioned that he died for any other race, and we are it. But I need to tell you all this because next year, and especially 2026, they're going to release a lot of this stuff. And when they do, the narrative is not actually all correct. The people at the top, they know, and I've been told they know that these are interdimensional beings, which is different than interplanetary.
Made with pure and natural A2 milk. Help keep tiny tummies comfy on the inside.
Now, if you notice during the congressional hearings, and I want you to listen to especially this last one, because those four guys are the golden gooses. And what they said, I told Kathy, I said, I can't even believe they're telling. I can't even believe they're telling this. This is history. That they even, because I knew this stuff, but I would not say it because I'm not read in or read out or anything. I just know it, and I should know it, but I ain't going to jail. So I let other people, when it's time and they get clearance to do it, they do it. So they're all clear to say certain things, but they wouldn't answer the questions that you want answered. Are there hybrids? Are these human? They said, are they human? They told Congress they're not human. Or are they interdimensional, or are they from another planet? They said, we cannot answer that. Why can't they answer it? Well, if they were from another planet, they would have said so. But if they can't answer that, so there's a couple authors that you need to read where this will connect the pieces for you. So I don't have to it'll take a week. But if you read the books in succession, if you want the science behind it, the guy who was the head of Jet Propulsion Laboratories, who designed the space shuttle boosters, 30 years with JPL, his name was Paul Hill. His book is called Unconventional Flying Objects. His daughter found this material after he had died, and she published it. Oh my. So if you read that, that brings the science. NASA came to him and said, we don't want you to prove these exist. We just want to know how they work. So that book, will give you the foundation. You'll be smarter than a lot of people around you if you read that book. And then if you read The Day After Roswell by Colonel Corso, he was given the retrieval pieces, which they did ask these guys yesterday who were in charge of all this, do we have retrieved aircraft? He goes, yes. goes, they go, is it from us? No. We don't know where it's from. But it's not China, and it's not us, and it's not Russia. The Russians don't know. They have it too. Listen to the, okay, so in Roswell, there was 3 of them. They have, you know about one, and it was a weather balloon. It was not a weather balloon, but Corso goes through this. And if you read that book, The Day After Roswell, they got this stuff. They reverse engineered it. They gave it to Corning and to General Electric and all these industrial complexes. And that's where it got out into Lockheed Martin. And they got all this material. And that they have all this ability now to create materials that are beyond what you even know. So a lot of these craft today that you see are ours, based on what we got in the 40s. So Corso. Okay, if you want to know who these things are, read John D'Souza, who is a retired FBI agent who was over the paranormal at the FBI. He had a lot of cases that went cold because people and things were disappearing and reappearing. And so he retired. He wrote a book called Interdimensionals. And he is a Christian brother, and he's been in contact with me. And I mentioned his book because I hide these books on Amazon, especially his. So I mentioned it in an hour, it went to #1. But you have to search for it to get it. And so he contacted me, said, thanks. Okay, but he understands what the FBI knows that they don't want to admit. That's 25 years. Okay, so if you read that book, if you read how this all started before Roswell, you read Project Paperclip by Annie Jacobson, who is a Pulitzer Prize winner. And you can't take everything she says, because she also, all these people, you got to be careful because they're being controlled by the intelligence agencies on what they can say.
Diane, death by 1,000 cuts. That's what's going on in America. Death by 1,000 cuts.
Not say. So there are certain things that she protects, I noticed. But Project Paperclip will show you that she documents that there were 1,500 Nazis that were scientists. That's the reason we went into Germany and grabbed those guys. They did not go to the Nuremberg trials, but they were all SS. They were all SS. They all killed the Jews, and they escaped Nuremberg. They came over here. If you I don't want to name them because I got to put this on YouTube. But in the book, they name them all. They became the heads of the CIA and NASA. They were Nazis. So all those 3-letter agencies, a lot of them were started. And the big one is the fact that you know of certain people like William Teller, but you got to understand that when they detonated the first atomic bomb, it revealed the fabric of space in the atmosphere, and all these objects, they took the films down, but every now and then they'll put them back up again, and then the government takes them down. But you can see these craft in the air. That's how they figured it out. The atomic, when you split the atom, it just made this shockwave through gravity, and it was a fabric, and these things got disrupted.
I never knew that before. That's rather interesting.
You can see it in the film. When the atomic bomb goes out, it revealed all these things that were there. And then they start falling out of the sky. So it was our radar. It was in the areas where we had radar or we detonated atomic bombs. So if you notice, and if you notice why they mentioned, the Congress says, why are they always hanging around our atomic places where we have a nuclear material, ICBMs, the different places where they make nuclear material. And the bottom line is that is what brought them down, what exposed them. So they classified it under the Atomic Energy Commission. So UFOs will never be revealed because they classified it with atomic energy. That's why they're attracted to it. We split the atom, we went to a whole nother level, and we had access to other realms. Is that too much? Because I'll back off. The reason I'm saying this is because what has happened is the realms used to be all visible before we fell. And we weren't separate inside each other. Like in our cells, we have spirit, soul, and body.
Yeah.
There are three separate things that are mentioned in First Thessalonians. But it used to be that we were one. So it says that Paul says that we oppose ourselves within ourselves. He talked about people that were not walking with God. He says they opposed themselves. So you see David like speaking, says, "Why are you downcast, my soul?" Well, what part of him is talking to his soul? And what part of him is asking, "Why are you downcast?" It means that there was a part of him that wasn't downcast and depressed and was speaking to that part that was. Get it? Okay, that's your spirit versus your soul. Okay, you also have a body, which you operate in this realm. If you didn't have the body, you would be present with the Lord. You can't be on this earth without a body as far as functioning in this realm. But it used to be that you didn't need that separation. So you didn't oppose yourself. You didn't have arguments with yourself. If you are, please win if you have an argument with yourself. But the thing that wins is the thing that's the strongest. Okay, so you can see where the media and a world system focuses on your body and focuses on your mind, but very little is focused on your spirit. Okay, it's just like this engine. We focus on drill, baby, drill. We focus on fossil fuels and then compression and air and oxygen, but there are other realms like that Nikola Tesla. These people that just disappeared because they tapped into free energy where he said, "I can transfer energy wirelessly and it's free for the whole world." Next thing you know, he's gone. Right? Okay, so we can do this. Well, then they brought these von Braun, Warner von Braun. They had the missile technology, but they also had jet engine technology. And also, I saw photos that are missing now. But I saw photos that soldiers, photographers took at World War II and it was craft that I've seen pictures of over the United States as UFOs. I saw them inside these science labs in mountains in Germany. The same craft that is depicted in Roswell. But then they're gone. And then they reappear and then they're gone. Okay, because they keep taking them down, but people have them on a hard drive. I'm telling you this because next year you got to be ready for shock and awe, because they're going to have to figure out. Okay, they're going to have to reveal it because it's being leaked, but they're going to have to think of a way to route people so that their agenda is not interrupted for a new world order, for a one world government. So what happens is we don't understand like how this is levitating and it's transferring energy. So this is, look at that, it's just popping, it's just jumping. Okay, that is levitating. So that light bulb doesn't have any weight. It has weight, but it's not recognized now because there is a field that's causing it to be weightless. There's many ways to do this. This is not a science class. There's frequency, there's polarity, there's electromagnetic field, there's also atomic energy, which if you have that source, it literally negates and creates a field around it. You have this in some of our technology with aircraft today. You just don't know it, but you don't understand like how certain things can fly the way they do. But it's because this field technology is in the airplane, but it's not a full-blown saucer or whatever, or a tic-tac shaped thing. Okay, so how do you explain that? I bought this on Amazon.
Easy Shed, Aussie-made sheds, straight from the manufacturer, so you save heaps. Easy Shed, make life easy.
Nowadays, Matto spends more time on these four wheels.
The nice four wheels.
So he got drive less, pay less cover from Everyday Insurance.
Support your energy, stress and sleep with Australia's #1 magnesium brand.
Okay, so this is happening, and this is stuff you can buy. So why don't you believe in UFOs? This thing right here is levitating also.
Wow.
I bought that on Amazon. Okay, so you don't believe in flying saucers, but how's that thing suspended in the air? I can spin it. Oh, here's the moon. It's levitating. And here's the Earth. They didn't have a flat Earth, so I guess it must be a globe. So, okay, so we focus on this. We focus on this. But what about all the other stuff that you see up here? Okay, so what happens if God starts to move in the church in these higher laws at the end, to where you start to see like finances appear in your bank account, and you bump somebody at Subway sandwich and they get healed. You just bump them because they were in your way and they get healed. Okay, so what happens if we go beyond what we've been taught? You gotta pray for people. You gotta put anointing oil. You gotta give to my ministry so you get the anointing, you know, that kind of thing. What happens if the anointing comes on you and you don't give? What happens if you get a job and you didn't even apply for one? Because that has happened to me. I've gotten jobs that I wanted that I never applied for. In fact, most of my jobs have been that way, where I didn't even want it. I mean, I wanted it, but I didn't want it. I didn't do anything about it. So what happens when God starts to move that way, where you know that there are more angels in your house than demons? And that you go to church and there's more angels than demons, you know, where you want to go to church. What happens if things start to turn? You start to receive guidance, but you can't sit and make a DVD set to tell how it happened. What if it's just shock and awe? Okay, this is the reason I'm showing you all this, is because we don't believe, you may not believe in UFOs, but can you explain how this is happening and this is available? Okay, so if this stuff starts happening and you see stuff in the air and it's over your house and things are starting to happen, you see these creatures like you see them, and people in Las Vegas, people in Miami, those things really happen. And there's the FBI's involved with that, and they just like shut it up. But you got 10-foot creatures that are on film, that they take the film, they tell the police, you're not to talk about this. So then I have friends like call, hey, you were there, did you? I can't talk about it. Dad, it's a son, and he can't even tell his son what really happened. It's like you could see it on film. I can't talk about it. It didn't happen. Okay, so what happens next year when these things start to happen, and then they say, well, we didn't want to tell you, but these things are our gods, they're our creators. They seeded the earth, and I'm like, these 3-foot slanty-eyed guys are my God? You got to be kidding me. They have a short man's complex, you know. They need to eat some more. They're a little skinny, you know. Well, when the people that have done the autopsies on these for the government, they're not alive anymore. But they said they don't even have the digestive system to live past a certain point. They don't have reproductive glands. They are cookie cutter beings that were made in a lab. They're hybrids. So that's going to come out. It came out because I just said it and I shouldn't have. But I mean, what happens when you got people testifying to Congress under oath and they say, yes, this is the case? Okay, so these things were made in a lab. Well, so they're not from another planet, but they're possessed. See, the demons that are disembodied, they want embodiment. So if they can't speak through your senator anymore or your president, well, then they will have science create bodies, just like before the flood, these hybrids that don't have a conscience. You got to understand, the people that died in the flood were millions. Only 8 were correct. It says correct in their genetics. It says that they had pure bloodline. Noah was perfect in his generations, where there's genetics. only 8 out of all the animals in all the world, they didn't qualify to be saved. Okay, Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be before the Son of Man came. If you don't like that, well, then just look at the first couple of chapters of Daniel. When Daniel had that vision of that big statue, and it was gold, silver, bronze, went the whole way down to the 10 toes, right? 10 toes, iron and clay. It says, and they could not intermingle with the seed of man. What it says. Well, who's they? Well, if you took journalism, you just go back through until they mention it. Then they after that they can use a pronoun, right? But you got to have that first mention, and then you can use the pronoun. There is no first mention. So they. So do you notice it's always they, but we don't know who they is, and they always blame they. I'm telling you, by the Spirit of God, the church needs to wake up and become mature and get ready, because we've been coached into being unable to comprehend certain things. We've been coached that way. The information has been withheld from us so that when it is revealed, it causes everyone to want to submit to the government. They want to create this fear. So they get you hooked on pharmaceuticals. They get you hooked on the banking system. They get you hooked on everything when you're supposed to be really, we're all supposed to be in the church and be making decisions binding and loosing. We're supposed to make the decisions in church or in a prayer meeting or in your home. Kathy and I, we take communion together. We pray together. We pray 3 hours a day at least together. We prayed this morning. We woke up. We could have slept in. We woke up before the birds came up, and we were like, we were praying. Why? Because it's just what we do. Not because we have to, but it's because these services, you'd rather go to Chick-fil-A than be here if I didn't pray. You got to hook yourself up. The only thing is that the things that I have learned about science, I realize that things at the end are being prophesied by the prophets, that in the last days, knowledge will increase and there'll be trafficking and travel very quickly. And it says that those who know God will shine like the noonday sun. Their faces will shine in the last days. God is going to come upon his body. And that's God's plan, not this Hollywood mentality of ministers. I can't believe I said that. So, all right, so you have all this stuff up here, and I don't want you to have to understand all this now. What I want you to do is start to ask questions and start to realize that you need to learn. You need to do your own research, and you need to find these things out yourself. They will not come to you. You're going to have to search for them, and you're going to have to ask God. The reason, when you look at how the distances are between us and the sun and the temperatures, it is literally impossible to have this all happen by accident. The way gravity is, and I'm telling you this because I'm going to give you some heads up. They're really nervous because what's going to happen is what was covered when God did something to cover and destroy these things, it's going to be uncovered, especially on the ice caps. You got to understand there's stuff underneath there that God covered that's going to start melting. And when it starts being exposed, there's going to be a lot of things. There's things under the ocean. There's cities that were destroyed. And it's just not your, folklore and fables that you learn. These things existed, and these beings and these humans that were there were very powerful, but they were bad and they were wrong. And God has covered this and has locked those beings out of this realm, but they're coming through again. The governments and scientists are opening portals. If you look up Project Looking Glass and High Jump and Galileo, you understand why the Simpsons knew more about what was going to happen than We do. All that is scripted. But they couldn't change the future past a certain point. So at 2012, even though they could see the future, they couldn't change it. Did you know that? And if you look up in the files of the CIA at 2012, all the scenarios, no matter what they did to try to go in the future to change it, they could not. All they could see was Jesus Christ coming back. So we're at that 2012 until where we're at now. They have no control. So that's because it's a time of the church. So we have never been in such a time as this, as we can call the shots. And that has been proven just last week. Because we prayed. Now, it's not against people and the color of your state, all that. It is about the fact that should the church have a voice, and should Christians be able to exercise their freedom as believers, which means we can change history. We have authority, right? So I don't pray, like we joke about this. I had a need, so I asked for some government cheese. It's a joke Kathy and I have. It's like I had a need, so I'll get some government cheese. It's like, no, I had a need, and so I believe God. And we agreed as touching this one thing. In other words, we don't rely on the government. At what point did this happen? Why did we let it happen? It happened very slowly. It came over. These elites were some of our presidents. Even way back, they were Masons and Illuminati. You'd be surprised who they are. But they had an agenda. Okay, so that elitist, they also have the ability. For instance, how many of you remember that airplane called the Blackbird, the SR-71? Well, my professor flew it. He was the wing commander of Beale. He got shot at every mission. He said that there's never a time where he didn't get shot at. He said it went much faster, much higher than I can say and what's published. But he said to me that it used to be the A-12, which was the CIA. The CIA owned 12 of those, or more than that. I think it was 17. But the CIA owned those. They went to lock.
Why would they need to own 12 of them? The FBI of CIA, I mean.
Geed and asked them to develop this. They asked for the U-2 spy plane. They asked for this. It's interesting that when you look at what happened in 1947 and how these things went to Lockheed, then you have these materials and the skin of these airplanes. And then the CIA, where did the CIA get their money to buy that many of those things when the Air Force didn't have them? They turned it over because it became old technology. They turned it over to the Air Force, but it really wasn't the Air Force. It was the National Reconnaissance Organization, the NRO, which you've maybe never heard of. But there's many of these agencies that have the industrial complex, which is civilian, but they have all the goodies. Where did they get all these goodies? Okay, so you got to look up Gary Nolan. He is up for Pulitzer Prize this year, head microbiologist. He has been given 17.
Will we see what, Wyatt? I don't understand what you're asking. Will we see what?
Pieces of material that's not from this earth, that was fallen off a craft, that people, even the CIA has come to him and said, can you analyze this? At Stanford. You need to listen to him because he's going to blow the whistle. He's saying the government's hiding this stuff. 17 pieces of material from craft. That's not from that. The isotopes are at a level that there's no way that it can be from here. So how did it get here? John Mack.
He did the research. He said, this stuff is happening. I'm giving you these names so you can research these people. These are people that aren't Bible believers. They're just scientists, and they're saying this stuff is happening. Okay, so we have to get past the place of these things don't exist or we don't know. They exist. Okay, the thing with Christians is so we try to fit it into our 66 books of the Bible. And the Bible is based on God's plan for man as far as salvation, his plan from beginning to end. But it doesn't have all of these clear-cut things
You're making
in there about the anomalies that we experience because it has to do with a fallen world and realms that were shut out. But what is happening is that the governments are being fed information by evil spirits, demons, and these entities that are highly technical, based on alchemy.
Yeah, why? He said this year and next year. You're right. He did say that.
And forbidden things, which Hitler had things open. If you look at some of the stuff, which I don't want to get into, he opened portals. He had witches on staff, right? And they told him what to do and how to mix metals. These metals that are on these craft, they're at high degree. I'm talking like almost 90% purity of magnesium, which we can't make on the earth. These craft, as you get out towards the tips of these things, it is so pure. But when it is lit up by atomic energy, it changes the field
You're gonna have
around
to
the craft, and it negates gravity.
Move.
Not only that, it
laptop
causes time to stand still. And you can go places, and there's no time pass because the distance is done in seconds instead of years. And the effects of this on the occupant inside, they don't experience any of the effects that you would from the outside looking at it. So it's highly technical, but it's from the past because they used to be able to do these things. And that's how you see all these structures. Okay, so why is it that the head of the Pentagon told Lou Elizondo, who was head of Space Force, head of ATIP, testified yesterday or 2 days ago, and he was spilling the beans and he is nervous. Why was his boss, why did his boss tell him as head of ATIP, which is this anomalous aerial phenomenon, that he has retrieved the bodies, retrieved the craft? He knows a lot more than he can tell, but in front of Congress, he testified that we have these things, they're not of this world, we don't know what they are, we can't shoot them down. And
cats across Australia are on strike, refusing to make any more funny cat videos until they're treated with Australian-made, all-natural treats.
Ginger, it's treat time. There'll be no strike in your house with Breeder's Choice Treats. Choose better. Choose Ginger.
Say goodbye to expensive scratch repairs once and for all. This groundbreaking car spray will make your car look brand new without costing a fortune. It will remove scratch.
Why did his boss tell him? He said, you need to read your Bible because you're barking up the wrong tree about who these occupants are. He said, these are demons. And that's his boss, which he doesn't name.
Wow, that's pretty heavy.
Okay, so the boss of the guy who's head of Space Force and ATIP is being told by his boss that these are demons and that you need to read your Bible. We can spend another hour. I'm going to stop again, but we're going to restart. But I'm only doing this because the bottom line is that why, in the encounters I've had, why do they listen to the name of Jesus? And John Mack, he was at Harvard, not Harvard. I'm trying to think. He was at Johns Hopkins, and then he went over to Stanford, I think, before he passed away. But he did all this research on 1,000 of these individuals that had claimed to have missing time and had some sort of encounter with an alien being.
He was neutral, so he's a psychiatrist. He did the study on that, and 1,000 people, which didn't talk to each other. He determined that they didn't know each other. They all said the same things that the beings told them, and that they all looked similar. And in the craft, they saw symbols that they drew out. They have 500
Go away, you're rocking the
of the same
tablet.
symbol inside
The laptop.
which he died and didn't share it, but I know somebody that has it, and I think he's probably going to release it if he can remember what it looks like. Okay, so John Mack's saying, listen, I don't believe in any of this stuff. You should hear these guys. They don't even believe in this stuff. They became convinced because they did the investigation on it. But this is what John Mack said. He said, there were no Christians abducted. And if they were in the process of being taken or saw craft, he said it was stuck.
I've told you the story before, guys. I chanted the Lord's Prayer and they stopped trying to take me.
If they mentioned the name of Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a guy that doesn't even believe this way. He said there was one lady, one case where she claimed to be a Christian, but as they investigated, she was living with someone who wasn't her husband. So she wasn't part of a church or anything, and she was essentially not living the life.
Go.
So that is the only case where that was allowed to happen. Now, think about that. In my experiences too, as well with these craft, they obey the name of Jesus.
I don't know why. He's gone on this big scratch thing. That's his bell ringing around his neck when he scratches. I put that on him so the birds can hear him coming.
Okay, so this is just happened in the last couple of weeks. I mean, I have a photograph that the Congress would want. I got a photograph just buzzed our plane. We got a photograph of it. It did a right angle turn, went under our plane and went right beside our plane at over 1,000 miles an hour. Did a right angle turn, and I got the whole thing. And so it shows it going through as it accelerated through it, went through the Mach numbers, and it blew vortices, and then it shows a disc. Never warned us on the radar. I felt a little bump, but that's it. Was it? No controller said anything, which would it's considered a near miss at 200 feet. Had that happen just not that long ago too, as well. Something flew by us. They go, "What was it?" I go, "Well, it didn't have wings." He goes, "You want to report it?" I go, "No." But it almost hit us. They had no radar. It didn't show up on our radar. Okay, so these things happen. And it's not just me reading books. It's happening to me. But I've had them come over me, metal craft, where I've rebuked it in the name of Jesus in broad daylight, and it's left at a high rate of speed. And other people reported it, not just me, to the authorities. So I know it wasn't just a vision or something. Okay, I'm telling you this because I feel like the shock and awe is coming, but I'd rather have the shock and awe this morning in Buffalo. Okay, so if you notice, we're filming this, but they take stuff out, so we're filming it, and then we're going to release it so that they can't mess with it. Because the whole world needs to know this. The church needs to know this, that we're going to another level of warfare where they expose themselves as being something of higher intelligence and higher technical, but it really has to do with the fallen angels and the things that they taught men how to sin. And they taught them about the stars and about mixing metals together, alchemy and things like that. There's all kinds of things that we are not supposed to do. I mean, you realize that it forbids even the anointing oil that was in the Old Testament. Said you weren't allowed to make that except for the priest. So people claim that, well, I got all the ingredients and I made it. It's like, well, what does it say in there? What does it say about adding to the scripture, taking away from it in the book of Revelation? I mean, you get in trouble, right? Okay, what happens if you lie to the Holy Spirit in church? Ask Ananias and Sapphira. Okay, so with all this that I'm telling you is going to happen, we will also see the New Testament church come back as far as walking, right? Okay, so if you want God to prosper you supernaturally, then you got to set it in your heart that you're going to be a distribution center. that you're going to help people, that you're, and how you do that, how you prime the pump is as you see, if you noticed this week, gas went down 50 cents magically. Okay, it's going to keep going down. The groceries are going to go back down. Okay, when all this happens, don't be deceived into settling it, because the real war is just brewing. Okay, so you got to immediately, when your opponent is sitting in the corner getting his drink and towel, you're getting ready to knock him out when he comes out into the ring. And that's what I'm getting ready to do. I'm like, oh, no. I'm not giving the enemy any rest. So immediately I started this rhetoric. I did a lot of teaching, a lot of courses are coming out, a lot of books are coming out that I've already done immediately before the election and after election, because I knew this stage. I told my staff that I wasn't going public with it. I knew in my spirit, the Lord said, you are going to laugh at what's going to happen. And I go, I believe so, Lord, but I know what happened last time. It was stolen and they can steal it just as easy. And I said, Lord, he said, get ready, be prepared. So I knew it was going to happen, but I knew that within a month after the November 5th, this stuff was going to start happening. Okay, up until the 20th of January. So we can't give the enemy any rest. So in this next session, if you'll let me do one more, I'm going to talk about like the tools that you need in prayer to start to see things happen. It is literally open heaven right now. Okay, so you heard the first session about faith and about how faith has to do with authority, and we need to get back to the church, and you is plural, not singular. Then I revealed all this to you because you need to know that we are going.
Okay, he's got another video, guys. I'll play that and see how good it is. There it is, exposing the reptilian agenda.
This is the reason why I've cancelled my new aircon order. Meet the mini portable cooler.
Sick of sweating.
Find the radar guys. I shine a bright light on them. Okay, so if you talk to people like I have talked to people, and people that have said things, well, they know stuff because of their expertise, their area. For instance, like people that operate radar. I always find the radar guys. I shine a bright light on them. So that happened one time. There's a radar station up north of Phoenix that covers all 4 states there. And they used to let you go. We'd all go up there, Mount Humboldt. And Kathy and I would always go up there. We always go up there and you see forever on this mountain. It's got this big dome. It's got radar, covers 4 states. So the guy comes out. He came out like Punxsutawney Phil, out of his hole there. And he goes, hey, you want a tour? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I said, sure.
I'll check this out, guys. Hang on. Where is he? Oh, not there. What about like videos? I'm just looking for something, guys.
Kidding me? I sure.
I didn't load.
We are
It didn't load, guys.
Kidding me? I sure. So we went in there, and it's like an amazing thing. I'm like, I want this job. because he had like a whole library in there and videos and everything, and it's this big apartment. And he just has to monitor the equipment and different anomalies and stuff, whatever. And then he switches every 2 weeks with somebody else. So there's only two guys, and they have like every book, everything they need up there. I'm like, oh man, this is like a man cave. Like snacks, videos and books. And, all he has to do is monitor these 4 states, which is easy because the screens are set out that way. So I started asking him questions, and this is how we're going to start to this morning. It's interesting that when you get down to it, you're talking about the Garden of Eden. You're talking about a reptilian, a serpent that's a reptile type animal that is talking and is really like the symbolism throughout to Revelation of the dragon and Satan and all that, but if you look at the words, which we'll get into if you want, it's just a totally different creature than what you thought. So it's interesting that, like, if you ask questions, what I found out is that you can mention UFO, you can mention flying saucer, you can mention Bigfoot, Loch Ness, but if you mention reptilian, you get flagged at Wikipedia. So I always name my stuff with the word reptilian in there because they get all upset. So this morning, this morning's called How to Confront a Reptilian. So just remember that. So we can't go.
Okay, I'm not going to play this. He gets flagged for that. Man, I've got nothing else lined up. Hang on, guys.
Your room is amazing. Let's celebrate. Every chuckle, every breath.
The messengers and had sent them out another way. Now, I don't think the church has a clue where it is, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. Over the last day or so, there has been a new announcement of a new appointment. Paula White to lead the New Faith, of course, office. Now, there's a lot of people up in arms saying, why did he pick her? She's the worst choice ever. And I actually kind of understand where you're coming from. However, I do think actually this is the perfect pick, not for the reasons you're thinking, but actually because, well, I think God has a sense of humor. The way I look at it, I think the church is pretty clueless at this point in time. And I've been trying to, talk about this in various respects over the last couple of years, but there's a lot of people that just simply don't know how far off track the church is. And I think she's a perfect example of this. And I think God sometimes uses things like this to kind of illustrate a point. And a perfect example of this would be James 2:19 through 26. Now, if you look at these passages, it talks about Abraham and how he was justified by his works. Of course, everyone would have no issue with Abraham. However, it then goes on to say that likewise also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works when she received the messengers and had sent them out another way. Now, of course, most people will be like, why would he pick a lady of the night to do something righteous? Again, I'm not saying that Paula White is a lady of the night, but honestly, I think the church is, okay? And when I say that, it sounds pretty bad me saying that, but I don't mean in the way that a lot of people think. When I say late in the night, a lot of people think of SEX and things like that. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to a church that doesn't revere, doesn't follow her master, doesn't follow the one she's wedded to,
Man,
Okay?
what a glare.
And this is what is the issue I've seen. A lot of the people complaining about Paula White are not any better than her. They think they are, but they're not. And it's kind of hilarious to see. Now, I think this guy got it right. Tomi Ariomi here. Let me just play what he has to say a little bit here, and we'll comment.
And he releases this kind of Pamela Anderson-esque prostitute to lead them in through a window.
He's talking about Rahab right now. And what's interesting is he's going to get into how this was to save Israel and to bring them into the promised land. Now, of course, America has been in the wilderness for quite a while of recent. And now we have a new president, a new leader leading us into the promised land. And here we have a woman, Paula White, not exactly the best track record in the world. Apparently had an affair, then married the guy she had an affair with, all this kind of stuff. Not someone with a clean record, right? But then Rahab definitely didn't have a clean record either. And she was the instrumental in the leading them into the promised land. You see what I'm getting at? So he's talking about that there.
And to take them into the promised land, I want to tell you something. We are in that era right now where America has been singing crossover, 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 our crossover year. And now you're in that crossover year and you're still singing crossovers coming, crossovers coming. And
exactly, because people are clueless about the signs. It's just like the time when the Messiah came. Most of the people during that time had no clue he was coming. Even though there was apocryphal texts like the Sibylline oracles that clearly indicated he was coming then. You had Second Adam and Eve, First Adam and Eve, the Book of Adam. If you read these books, it tells you literally the year he's going to come, 5,500 a.m. And he came exactly at 5,500 a.m. But no one seemed to know about it because no one read these other scriptures, these apocryphal scriptures at all. And note, the church today rejects the Apocrypha. Very interesting. And the whole point is that they're not able to read the signs of the times. That's why no one sees this. They're looking for some perfect person, what they think is how it's supposed to be. They were expecting someone like a military leader to come into the world 2,000 years ago. Oh, he's going to save our country this way. But that's not what he did, right? So the same is the case here. Everyone's expecting certain things to happen, and they don't happen as they expect them. And then they just assume it hasn't happened yet when it already has happened. You see what I mean? Anyway, so that's what he was saying there. And I actually had another clip. Let's see, is this in a different spot? No, actually it isn't. So let's just play a little bit more of this.
It almost reminds me of when Jesus came, and he came to his own, and his own received him.
Literally, he's actually saying the same. I didn't even play that. He's literally saying the same thing. So the point is that everyone's expecting things to be the way they think it's supposed to be, the way they think the Bible is supposed to be read, the way they think everything should be, and it doesn't happen the way they expected, right? So, of course, what's interesting about this, you have, we have our president doing some rather interesting things. After prayer breakfast creates a group to root out anti-faith bias. Yes, indeed. So, that's pretty interesting. And I think that is something that's needed, is very obviously needed at this point. This man, of course, Tomi, predicted there would be a purge, of course, coming and would clean out the house. We're talking not only about our GOV, but also the church. People just assume it's not the church's problem. Actually, it is. The reason why everything's so terrible right now is not because of pagans and atheists and your government. The reason everything's so bad right now is because of the church. And how can I say that? Who was Jesus dealing with when he was on earth 2,000 years ago? Was it a bunch of atheists? Was it pagans? Was it Caesar? Or was it actually the religious leaders? The religious leaders were the problem. Why are they the problem? Because if they actually taught things correctly and led people the correct direction, then God's kingdom would be coming on earth. But instead, what do we have today? Those that are actually complaining about this lady, and again, I'm not, honestly, I really don't want to defend her because I don't think she's probably the best standard for teaching or any of that kind of stuff, because from what I've seen, it doesn't look too awesome. Let's just put it that way. Not the best track record in the world, but again, look at Apostle Paul. He had a bad track record. King David had a bad track record. So you can't really necessarily look at the past in that respect. But again, I understand. She's not the best person in the world. I understand that, okay? But my point is, a lot of the people complaining about her don't believe in miracles, don't believe you can take any sort of dominion whatsoever on earth. They're literally the antithesis of what was taught by Jesus, and they're clueless that they are. Because, of course, he went on Mount Hermon and said, on this rock, I will build my church. Mount Hermon is where the fallen watchers came down in the book of Enoch. He said, on this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. Now, of course, the gates of Hades were on Mount Hermon. They're right there. It's called the gates of Pan, or also Hades, because this is where these watchers came down, according to the book of Enoch. Of course, the book of Enoch also said the Messiah would be called the Son of Man. And of course, what did Jesus call himself? The Son of Man. The book that said it the most times was the book of Enoch. But of course, the church has completely rejected that book, other than one church way over in Africa, in Ethiopia. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church is the only church that maintained that as scripture. All the other ones got rid of it. So to me, it's very interesting, because the way I look at it, you have a bunch of blind, guides today. You have people that are teaching that you can't have any sort of dominion. You can't have miracles anymore. This is John MacArthur. This is Wretched. These are the people complaining about Paula White, by the way, because she's a charismatic, which, of course, I'm not one either. But again, it's a dichotomy that was created by the devil, as far as I'm concerned. No miracles, or miracles that are off track. One of the two. You got two choices. No miracles, or miracles and don't even read the scriptures. One of the two. Which one do you want? Neither. I want neither. I want the one that's actually on track. You see what I mean? So this is the issue. The devil has set up paradigms in the church, and the church thinks it's completely on track, but it's actually completely blind.
That's
and it's
interesting,
criticizing
Doc.
someone because of their history when they're no better. They're no better. This is kind of how I look at it. So I think it's kind of funny looking at this, because I think it's God having a sense of humor. He's going to use the lowest elements of the world. No one thinks highly of a lady of the night. Use her for getting Israel into the promised land. Okay, let's take a pastor that no one seems to like. Let's use her. That's a good idea. Let's just do that. Again, I don't know much about her. I mean, I know she's a little bit flamboyant, or whatever you want to call it. Apparently, Wretch doesn't like her. Of course, Calvinists love to make fun of anybody that tries to move too much, or, does something that looks a little strange, and, oh, look at her, she's weird. This is the kind of stuff they do. I mean, here's Wretched. This channel, all he can do is just play random clips of her. I mean, again, she's a little eccentric. It's kind of like Elon or something. All right, check this out.
Wherever I go, God rules.
Oh, yeah, I had to play that clip because, of course, my channel's called God Rules. So I just thought that was interesting. But all right, let's keep going.
When I walk on White House grounds, God walks on White House grounds. The Lord, because it is done. The Lord, because it is done. The Lord, because it is
Okay. Well, she's a little eccentric, but I mean, at least she believes in what she's saying, right? Whether or not
She's not eccentric. She's dishonest.
it's all on track. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, at least she believes it. At least she's trying to do something, right? It's better than saying, well, you can't have any dominion on earth. There are no miracles. Nothing good is ever going to happen. It's just going to end, and we're just going to, the earth's going to go up in flames, and we're just out of here. We're beamed out of here. It's at least a little bit better than that. At least you're trying to make the earth better. At least you're trying to bring something better to pass. It's a little bit more positive. Even if you don't like the eccentric part of it, okay, I understand.
done. And she starts going around and around and around.
Maybe she'll fly away. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I won't be doing stuff like that anytime soon. But I mean, that's how she does it. So that's her. And of course, she's had plastic surgery. I understand. I was pretty surprised when I found out she has a redhead. She's got blonde hair.
With Foxtel's summer sale, the whole family can enjoy the hottest entertainment. Explore the world's best drama. Cricket live in 4K Ultra HD, plus Netflix. Your deal's too hot to miss with Foxtel. Tell him, honey.
Oh, so we took this trip to Bali with the kids.
And he took a big trip in Bali.
Well, they were uneven steps. Lucky.
Our famous malted pancakes aren't the only reason we're seen on the world's 50 best restaurants, but they're a pretty big reason. Perfectly golden on the outside, pillowy soft on the inside. You don't get that on cheap cookware. Hey,
Here, I'm like, what? She's a redhead? Seriously? Okay, I guess that's true. She's a redhead. My mom was a redhead, so it's kind of weird. I didn't expect that. So my mom's hair was not that red, though. My mom's hair was kind of brown with a little bit of red tint in it. I don't know. So at any rate, my whole point is that sometimes God picks the people you wouldn't expect to do things. And, you know, I think it's sort of a reflection of the church. The church is in shambles. As far as I'm concerned, the reason why the world is so bad is because the church is not doing its job. And there's people teaching in the church not to do anything. Literally just beam me out of here. I can't stop sitting. I can't stop sitting. Sin and word thought and deed every day, total depravity. There's no miracles. I can't do anything. You sound like a complete defeatist. It's almost like the devil just programmed your brain to not do anything. Just sit on the couch, do nothing. Here you go. Sit on the couch. Here it is for you. Sit on the couch and do nothing. And let us do something, because you're clearly not going to do anything anyway. So see, a lot of people think this is the right doctrine. You're like, oh, this is a wretched. John MacArthur, the establishment in the church teaches this way. This is why the church is in such a bad shape. This is why the world is in such a bad shape. If he came back right now, they would think that he would totally be on their side, and he'd be like, you guys need to get your act together right now. You're the problem. And then they'd be like, well, I'm not the problem. Yeah, you are. You're the problem, and this is why the world is as bad as it is. All right? This is the way I see it. I mean, goodness gracious, you have, and it's on both sides. It's not just the Calvinists. You got charismatics punting Bibles across the church. I mean, that's obviously ridiculous, disrespectful to God. I mean, they're not even teaching from it anymore. They're just, hey, how can you have a good day? Joel Osteen garbage, right? Like motivational speakers. They're not even trying to teach you scripture at all. Like zero. They don't need it. They'll just punt it across the screen, punt it across the room. That's all you need to do. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that's been going on for quite a while. And I had a dream last night, and it was a very bizarre dream. I was in this like hotel, and there's like an area where everyone could hang out, kind of like I don't know if they really have them here, but they do. Like I went to the Philippines, and they'll have like an area like on top of the hotel where you can a swimming pool. There's like a food restaurant. You can hang out and do stuff, right? Maybe even play some table tennis or whatever. You know what I mean? Pool or something. And I was in like a hotel like that, and there was like food everywhere. It was just like tons of food. There's like tons of activities you could get involved in. And everybody was just seeking their own. And then people started getting really kind of crazy acting. They're so self-centered and so seeking their own that they start fighting with each other over the silliest stuff. And then everyone else is trying to walk on eggshells not to offend anybody. Sound familiar? Sound kind of like our world today? Everyone's so selfish that all they can think about is themselves and what they want. Right? And if you're a guy who wants to justify your life, you're going to make excuses for things. I can't stop sinning. I can't do this right. I don't want you to do anything. I could just sit around. God's going to beat me out of here anyways. Doesn't matter. Right? This is the attitude people have. This is exactly what Aleister Crowley, the devil told Aleister Crowley would be this age. They would get rid of altruism. Altruism is loving your neighbors yourself, thinking of others before yourself, not thinking of yourself first. And I think this is what God was trying to tell me through the dream, is that everyone is extremely self-interested, individualistic, not thinking about anybody else but themselves. And this is why the world has gotten so crazy of recent. And it's because this is exactly what the devil planned for it to be. Right? And I talked about that in a previous video, but I wanted to get into some other stuff as well. On this, SEX topic. It's kind of curious because, of course, Paula White apparently said, it wasn't her, it was her husband, said something like 10 years ago on one sermon, and everyone's freaking out over it. Okay. He said something about, trying to explore with your wife.
Okay, why is Tony defending her so much? I don't get it.
Doing fun stuff with your wife, right? And I'm going to play the clip here of him saying it, but I wanted to mention really quickly that the guy that she's currently married to is not the guy, not the associate pastor she stole from another woman, but rather this is her second marriage, and she's now married to the guy who apparently used to be the legendary singer-songwriter Jonathan Cain from the rock band Journey. So this is the guy from the rock band Journey named Jonathan Cain saying this 10 years ago on this video. So I just wanted to provide some context. This wasn't like this isn't the first relationship, which was clearly off track. This is her getting married a second time. Hopefully she's doing this marriage a lot better than the last one. At any rate.
Our sex life, we're just starting right now. I realize the kids are in here. Praise the Lord. Thank you, Pastor Dad.
Well, I think, too, women have to, or don't have to, but women should look at a man and find out what turns him on. I mean, and you can talk about this. This is something that, how freaky do you want to get? You know what I mean? And
that does not belong in a church. Wow.
And the other part of it is, ladies, if you don't know what he likes, figure it out. Get a book. Go get some porn. Do something. If he likes to watch porn with him. You know what I mean? It's like.
And then he said, if you don't know what you should do, maybe you should check out some books or magazines or read some how-to, or maybe check out some videos. And people were freaking out over that. Like, what? You're telling them to watch some stuff? And this all comes back to what I've talked about numerous times before of how the church completely misunderstands one passage, and they've used it to basically control how people think in the church. And let me explain what I'm talking about. So there's a one passage, Matthew 5:27-28. It has to do with lust and adultery, and it's a mistranslated passage. I've shown this numerous times before. It doesn't say woman, it says the word wife in Greek. And actually, a lot of the ancient translations before the King James had it correctly. This one right here, for example, has it correct. There's even modern ones that have it correct. It's supposed to say the word wife and not woman. So it says, but I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a wife to desire her hath committed adultery. It doesn't say woman, it says wife. The word is guneka, and the word guneka means wife. In every other passage in the scripture, it's translated wife, except for this one verse in the King James. And of course, all the modern ones translated woman as well. And I've covered this numerous times. There's actually about 10 different ways I could prove this, but I mean, there's like commentaries to talk about this from 180 AD that were written in Greek by people that spoke Greek, reading a Greek NT, saying that, and this one actually is about Solomon being a good example of how to follow this, meaning this guy here, Theophilus of Antioch, believed that King Solomon was a good example of how not to desire your neighbor's wife. He had 1,000 wives. Or no, he had 800 wives. 800 wives. He said he was a good example to follow. King Solomon was. Now, if you asked a pastor today, do you think King Solomon would be a good example of how not to lust after, of course, women? What would your pastor say? He'd be like, H-E, and hell no. He would say that, right? He would say, no way. There's no way that guy's a good example at all. Zero. This guy from 180 AD said he was a good example, which should indicate that you don't understand the verse correctly. Here it is in Greek. He actually rewrote it in Greek and added an extra Greek word that means belongeth to another to make it clear that people will need to understand this is a wife, not a woman. So here's another example. If you go to the Greek Septuagint, Exodus 20, guneka, that means wife, do not covet thy neighbor's wife. This is the 10th commandment of Exodus 20 of the 10 commandments. All Jesus was doing was paraphrasing that commandment. In the New Testament, in the Sermon on the Mount, he said in the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, think not that I've come to change the law. I didn't do that. If he didn't come to change the law, then he would be paraphrasing or quoting it. And this is exactly what he did here. He paraphrased, do not covet thy neighbor's wife. And now everybody today has mistranslated it to say woman, meaning what they teach today is you can never think any thoughts ever or see anything. In reality, that's not what it says at all. It's saying do not desire to take your neighbor's wife. That's what it literally says in Greek. But no one seems to know this. And this leads into the whole false theology that is in the Calvinism, which is total depravity, because their whole thing is, well, you can't stop thinking things, so you must be totally depraved. This is their argument based off a false understanding of Scripture that leads to their false theology, which leads to a Pharisaical theology.
I didn't stop myself thinking.
And why is it a Pharisaical theology? Because the Pharisees looked good on the outside, but were full of dead man's bones, or hypocrisy. Because a lot of people, they say these things, but they don't do them. And that's part of it as well. They make a high standard that no one can follow, and then they make excuses why they can't follow it. Total depravity, I can't stop sinning. Then they make more excuses for other sins, and the next thing you know, they're with the secretary. Or like in the case of Paula White, where she was with the associate pastor. Both of them married. Paula was married, associate pastor married. They got together, they cheated, and then after that, they both divorced and married each other, and now she is the head of whatever you call this, the office of faith, right? Perfect person for the job because it is a perfect reflection of the church. The church has not been faithful to her master, and the church is clearly flawed. So I wanted to get into some other ironic things that I found recent. Check this out. Going to be talking about a topic I don't usually talk about on this channel. I'm going to be talking about this lady right here. Yeah, this lady. And actually, what's really interesting about it is the irony of the whole thing. So she's apparently a model, if you know what I mean, and she's made $43 million in 1 year. And believe it or not, she's not the standard person you would think. Okay, check this out. So this is from People magazine. Only, of course, fans. Model 20 made 43 million last year. To her, it doesn't conflict with her faith. The Lord's very forgiving. Sophie grew up attending church every Sunday in Tampa, Florida. What's really interesting about this is she says she's a virgin. And I think I understand why she's the top creator on this website. It makes sense once you start thinking about this stuff, thinking beyond just simple reaction. A lot of people, they just react to stuff. They don't think things through fully to see what's really going on here. So what does this tell you about our society? That's what people need to be asking. Okay, it tells me a lot. It tells me that marriage has failed.
What if you could send money overseas in seconds?
In our country, marriage has failed. How has marriage failed? Well, because men are looking for a good woman. This actually is sort of a testament to that. You might not think it is, but she's a virgin, and if you see how she acts sort of like you would hope.
Diane, they've got to be aware that Paula White is not a genuine Christian. They got to be aware of that.
A woman would act. She seems to be very feminine in how she's acting. Let me show you what I'm referring to. I'll give you an example of this a little bit right here. Let me just play this.
Yeah, it is, bro. You're that Instagram girl, right? This is your biggest fan right here. Come, bro. I told you it was her, bro. She wanted to take a photo of you. This is your biggest fan. He subscribes to all this stuff. He's a really big fan of yours.
Do you know her name?
Okay, so you can tell she seems to be sort of, I mean, obviously I'm not talking about how she's dressed, but how she acts. You can see how she acts. She acts sort of quiet, friendly, feminine, not loud, not trying to say, hey, look at me, I can do anything a man can do kind of attitude, right? She doesn't have that attitude that's commonly perpetuated in our culture, our society, Hollywood, everywhere, right? So she's a person of faith. She's a virgin. She acts like you'd hope a lot of women would act, at least sort of with that little simple interaction you can understand, right? And then understanding where men are at. So if you understand, a lot of men don't want to marry now. Why do men not want to marry now? Well, you have all these laws in lots of states and cities, et cetera, court law, where essentially if a man does this, that, or the other, he could lose his house, he could lose in a divorce, he have to pay alimony. Yes, and let me explain. So, like, I came from Michigan. I live in Indiana now. But in Michigan, my dad used to tell me all these stories about his friends. My dad's older. He's like 70. So this is not something that's happening just in the last few years. This has been happening for a long time now. He's telling me this one story about a guy who was just trying to get his daughter to stop. His daughter was freaking out. She was acting crazy, throwing stuff, screaming, just, huge tirade, right? And she was really going bonkers. And he just literally put his arms around her and held her. And guess what happened? Police arrive and he gets arrested. He gets arrested because he had his arms around her. See what I mean? So in Michigan, I remember, I think I even talked to someone on the phone about this at a police station. If you literally just stick your arm on a woman's shoulder and she doesn't want it, that's already considered something that you could get taken in for in some states. So you have ridiculous stuff like that going on. But of course, if the woman did it, nothing wrong with it. So completely okay. So you see that's one double standard type of thing going on. You also have in Michigan, my brother, he's telling me about his friend. His friend had thousands he was paying in alimony a month, like over $1,000. Like, that's insane. That's just completely insane. And this guy was not some rich dude. Okay, he was not a rich dude at all. He just had a normal job. So it's like completely and utterly insane what he was telling me. Then there's another story. Actually, I can tell you a lot of them. There's another story in Michigan where a guy bought a house for his daughter while she was in college. She's living in the house. Everything was great. She brought her friends in. Her friends are living there with her. Then she graduates and leaves the house to go get a job. Guess what? Her friends stay in the house. He asks them to leave. They won't leave. Michigan set up laws to where you can't get rid of these people. He literally brought a bulldozer and bulldozed the house down just to get rid of them. That's the kind of, all these ridiculous laws make it so no one wants to get married. No one wants to, you see what I mean? And there's actually even more. There's even more than this. There's another guy who ended up having to pay for his ex-wife and the kids to live in a house for free while he couldn't live in it. He's paying the mortgage while he can't live in it. So, and this is all from Michigan. I'm sure there's far worse stories that people could put in the comment section, but
I'll do that Super Bowl one tomorrow, Di. By tomorrow, some more info will have come out. So I'll do that tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing what they do.
If you're a young guy and you see these kind of stories, you're like, why the hell would I want to get married? See what I mean? Because of all these ridiculous laws that are set up to where it's feminism type stuff set up all throughout our society. And that's just that. That's not even counting trying to find a good woman, just like it's hard to find a good man, but you also have all these ridiculous enabling ideas in culture and society and laws that are causing these problems. So then if you have all that set up like that, men are going to be saying, look, I can't get married, but hey, this woman's hot. She's a virgin. She's the kind of woman I would want to marry, but I could never have. Hey, I'll just subscribe to her website. That's exactly what's going on here. That's why she's the most popular. That's why she made $43 million. She made more than a lot of NBA stars. Let me show you this. She made more than a lot of NBA stars. She made $43 million in 1 year. You got Kyrie Irving made $41 million. He made less money than this girl. Kyrie Irving made less money than she did. Okay? All right, check this out. So she's a virgin. Check this out. This guy's commenting on this.
Let's take Sophie at her word. There's no reason to call her a liar or anything. She says she's a virgin. She says she hasn't been with a man. She says she hasn't been doing anything. Okay? And despite that, the man gave her damn near $5 million.
So some guy gave her $5 million. Probably some rich NBA dude. Maybe it was Kyrie Irving. I don't know. I don't know who it was. I just think it's kind of funny because clearly this just shows it's funny to me because it's just a complete irony. It just shows the failure of our society.
Yeah.
It's a complete failure of the church. The church is no one wants to admit
Yeah,
this.
Di, that's
They think,
all I'll
well,
wait
we've got
till
great
tomorrow.
doctrine. we're doing everything right. No, if you were, society would change. Okay, society's not changing. You're doing something clearly wrong. Okay, something is wrong with what you're teaching. Otherwise, society would get better. And maybe that's not correct in all cases, but I can guarantee you in this case, I'm going to show you and prove you that it is the case. The reason why the culture is so bad is because of what the church has been doing. This is why when Jesus walked the earth 2,000 years ago, he wasn't worried about pagans and atheists or ladies of the night. He was concerned with the religious leaders because he knew that they were the devil that no one could see. Everyone could see a devil with horns and a red skin and a tail. Everyone could see that. They're like, oh, yeah, look, that's bad. Well, yeah, no duh. Like, you shouldn't do this, that, or the other. Like, there's obviously things that everyone knows are wrong. But when you see a minister up front teaching something and it sounds good and it sounds right, that's when the devil can trick you the most because it sounds like it's correct, but it's not. Okay? Mm-hmm. So this is what I wanted to get into in this video. All right. So this, I think, is actually a perfect example of what, I mean, this is such a perfect example of what's wrong with our society because she made so much money because men want to get married to a good woman and they can't do it anymore because our society is a complete failure. We have all these ridiculous laws set up. We have this feminist stuff everywhere. No one wants to get married anymore. Reason why and there's so many, the deck is stacked against you. You can't afford it either. And the woman can't afford to just be at home. She has to work. I've seen women complaining about this even on interviews, saying, I want to be at home only, but I can't because I have to work because we don't make enough money. Why is that the case? I covered this before. Let me show you this again.
It's always been the case.
What happened in 1971? Why did everything change? I've covered this on my business channel. No one almost seems to really know this very well, so I'm going to explain what's going on. What happened in 1971? The dollar was taken off the gold standard. This means that people could steal your money from your wallet and you wouldn't even know it. When they took the dollar off the gold standard, notice productivity kept going up, but your compensation went sideways.
Hey, Johnny, good to see you.
A raise since 1972 while everything continues to go up in price. Back then, the husband was working in the home, the wife was staying at home. They had plenty of money. But exactly when this happened, when they took the dollar off the gold standard, exactly when this happened, they started promoting women getting in the workforce. I'm telling you, this was a scheme by rich people to take your money. And no one seems to know this. The GOP was in part of this. They took the dollar off the gold standard in 1972. They started telling women to get in the workforce at the exact same time so that you wouldn't notice how much money you're losing. So, like, if they wouldn't have put out there women get in the workforce and it just was the men in the workforce, men would have noticed very quickly, I'm making half as much money as I used to. But if you have two people working in the home, then you don't notice it as much because you're both making money. You see what I mean? So they literally started stealing the money exactly when they told women to get in the workforce. They started printing money in the background and stealing it. That's why your dollar's worth less and less. That's what inflation is. It's a tax on you to some rich guy. That's what's happening. No one seems to understand this. This is why you can't have the traditional setup like we had for thousands of years, where the man's out hunting for wild animals or whatever, working as a smith or, whatever it was, whatever job you had. Now it's computer technology or whatever, whatever job you had, the guy was the one making the money, the woman's at home or whatever, taking care, making the garden, whatever she's doing, kids. Now you can't afford it. So the GOV, with evil, of course, people are pushing society a wrong direction, which probably is inspired by the devil. I'm guaranteeing it. Women wait till they're like 30, 40 to get married because they got to work. They got to get a degree. They had to get a degree because someone took the dollar off the gold standard and stole the money. You would be making 2.5 times as much more money right now if you were working and they didn't take the dollar off the gold. As soon as they put the dollar back on the gold standard, one person in the home could work again. Everybody would be fine. Are they going to do it? Well, I hope so. We'll see if they do it or if there's some rich people who want to continue stealing the money from you. But that's what's going on with that. So that's why it's difficult for people to have a setup in the home like that, right? Now, I wanted to play some other things. So we have numerous things going wrong here. We have the church teaching back doctrine, which I'm going to show you what that is now. And we have the world pushing society away to where they can't live right. That's the intent. That's the point. Let me show you this. Check this out.
The Bible is an inspired commentary on itself. Let me give you a good example. Again, this is one that just, every time I hear it, I just have to roll my eyes. Song of Solomon. It's about God's love for his people. It's about Christ's love for the church. No, actually, it's not. And well, how do you know that, Mike? That's such a blanket statement. I'll tell you how I know. Because the New Testament writers spend a lot of time talking about the relationship of Jesus, the bridegroom, and the bride of Christ. Paul uses this language, and guess what? Never once does Paul or any other New Testament writer quote the Song of Solomon.
So, a lot of ministers will tell you this because it's a cop-out. And I've been saying this for 15 years. What Dr. Michael Heiser said here, I said for 15 years ago on my channel. I literally said it 15 years ago. And I always thought the Song of Solomon had nothing to do with what they claimed it had to do with. And if you look into it, and like you said, if it really had to do with what they claimed it had to do with, then people would have quoted it. They never did. So then you have this here, romance with the Song of Solomon. And like I said, this is actually Near Eastern symbology all throughout the text. It's King Solomon's 141st wife. It's essentially a love story. It's very much eros or erotic, and it goes through, and it's all symbolic though. Like I said, your navel is like a round goblet. It says waist. You got this as well, the chest, neck, etc., all being spoken of. The nose, head is crowns like Mount Carmel. You get the ideas. And then you have, of course, also this arousal. His fruit is sweet, of course, to my taste. The taste, choice fruits. Well, I mean, what fruit is they talk? What fruit is she talking about? Obviously, it's not rocket science. Your mouth is like the best wine. Your fragrance, pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. It's not referring to perfume per se. You see what I'm getting at? Like, it goes into great depth and says a lot of stuff. And it goes, it's very much direct, except for it's through symbology. And it even has an audience watching this entire thing. So this text is in the middle, smack dab in the middle of the scriptures. Okay. And of course, ministers tried to explain this away by saying it's a love story between Christ and his bride. And again, as Dr. Michael Heiser pointed out, there's not one person in all of Scripture that quotes it and says, yeah, you're right. This is something made up today so they can avoid the topic. I don't want to talk about it. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. They want to avoid it. Why? This is exactly the devil's strategy. Avoid it. Don't talk about it. It's all a sin. Never think about it. And then what does the devil do? So the devil goes into the church, pretends to be a minister, like the Pharisees in 2,000 years ago, says, oh, hundreds of rules. I can't have fun. You have fun, that's wrong. And then the devil's over here so the devil goes in the church, says that. Everything's, if you want to have fun, you can't have fun here. And then the devil goes outside the church, like, hey, you want to have fun? Come over here where I'm at. And it might sound crazy the way I'm saying it, but it's actually true. Okay? Because let me show you an example. I'm going to show you numerous examples of this. So in the church, I remember this, I've talked numerous times about this. Mark Driscoll had this sermon where he had a guy come out in a bubble suit. You know, one of those bubble suits where you can't move. And he comes out and says, this is how you have to be with your girlfriend before marriage. Can't give a hug, can't do anything. These are rules made up by man. Just like the time of the King of Kings 2,000 years ago, the Pharisees had hundreds of rules made up as well. But he said they were hypocrites. They would make lots of rules, but they wouldn't lift a finger to follow them. And that's why you hear about all these ministers getting caught, because they make up lots of rules, but they don't follow their own rules. The whole point is the devil set up the system to where you have too high of a standard and then a no standard. And my researcher calls it Darwinistic Manichaeanism. So Manichaeanism in the church, via Augustine, Darwinistic mentality outside the church. And in that way, you jump from one end to the other all the time. You go back and forth between the two. You never actually have the correct lifestyle. You're always living wrong. You're always thinking wrong. That's why you can never get things right. That's why society gets more and more screwed up. And if you look at society, it's a testament to the church's failure. The fact that a man doesn't even want to get married anymore shows you how badly the church has failed. And that the GOV is being inspired, of course, by the guy with horns to move society this direction. That's why you're very difficult to afford living the old traditional way where you had one person working, the other one not. You can't really do that anymore because of inflation, because they set the system up to be that way. They game the system. They make all these laws so that a man gets married, then he could easily end up paying money towards the woman or whatever, or something bad could happen, right? As I mentioned earlier. So this is the whole thing with this is you also have this. This is another thing taught in the church that's completely wrong. This is one of the main errors in the church with regards to this topic. Matthew 5:27-28, you've heard this said of old time, do not commit adultery, but I say whosoever looketh on a woman hath already committed it in his heart. This is actually mistranslated. This is not the word woman. It's the word wife. The very first English translation had it correct is the William Tyndale version. I actually have a copy here. It says wife, but it's such an old English copy. It actually is spelled W-Y-F-E because they used to spell wife with a Y instead of an I. 1500s, in the 1500s, because he translated, I think, around 1550. It says wife. And actually, the word in Greek is guneka, which is only translated wife everywhere else in Scripture. Let me show you that. This is guneka. Guneka. G-U-N-A-I-K-A. This is in Matthew 28. This is the 10th commandment in Exodus 20. Do not covet thy neighbor's wife. He's literally paraphrasing. Here's the covet word. Covet. Covet. Same exact word. He's literally paraphrasing. The King of Kings is paraphrasing the 10th commandment. Do not covet thy neighbor's wife. And they mistranslate it so that you can think that any thought is wrong when it doesn't say it at all. It doesn't say it. This is a mistranslation. We even have people that spoke ancient Greek that back this up. We have here a guy, Theolophus of Antioch, from about AD 180, who spoke ancient Greek, who wrote in ancient Greek about this. He even added a Greek word to make it clearer. Woman that belongeth to another, or wife. He added an extra word so people don't get confused. He says up here that King Solomon was a good example of how to follow this passage. King Solomon had 800 wives and 200 concubines. You think he's a good example? I mean, the common viewpoint on this passage is you can't think any thoughts about a woman ever. You think King Solomon was a good example of following this? 800 wives, 200 concubines? No, not according to modern day thinking. But this guy from AD 180 said, yeah, he was a good example. He said, let thine eyes look straight on, let thine eyes look straight before thee. He says, another man's wife. It's about a wife, not a woman. So you can think thoughts about a woman. Just you can't desire to take another man's wife. That's the entire point. And guess what? The irony. This woman's not married. She's a virgin. And back in the old days, they wanted virgins. It's not rocket science. This is why she made 43 million. It shows you how broken our society is. It shows you our society is a joke. People don't even want to marry anymore because they're afraid something's going to happen to them. All this femi stuff everywhere. It's disgusting. That's why our society is so broken. And in the church, the reason why it got this way is because of the church. The church accepted the femi ideas. Okay? The church also believed these lies about how you're supposed to think about a woman, saying you can't think anything about a woman when it's actually just a wife. Then you had the purity culture, which is what these two women were a part of. And now they've completely turned on their old ideas. They were super, super conservative about this. And now that they're married, they've completely changed their minds. And I can actually play a little bit of this in a second here. Matter of fact, let me just show you the title of the video. Why SCX is a huge disappointment for many women that are believers. See that?
Blame the guy for that. He mustn't know what he's doing.
And of course, you have also Jacqueline Glenn, who's an atheist here on YouTube. She started off as, believe it or not, I think one of her first videos, she was a Christian. Okay? And this is what me and my friend, a researcher, we came up with this concept called Darwinistic Manichaeism, that St. Augustine brought Manichaeism into the church, this asceticism, where essentially you deny yourself things that God created. And this is the devil's idea. Like, you can't do anything fun in the church. You got to come over here to have fun. And then the system is set up to where you either have God and no fun, or you have no God and have fun. When in reality, you can have both. And the devil intentionally set this up so that he can have people off track all the time. Just like in the time of the Pharisees taught all these ridiculous things. And this is why Jesus dealt with them only, or exclusively, and not the pagans, not the ladies of the night, is because he knew they were the worst problem. The religious leaders were. Because it's not easy to detect the devil in the minister, the teaching of the devil in the minister. Because everybody assumes they know what they're talking about, right? So these two ladies were part of the purity of course culture, and they were teaching very, very, conservative type ideas, wait to kiss before till marriage and stuff like that. And now they've completely changed their mind after they got married. And what's interesting is actually, like I mentioned, with this whole paradigm of Manichaean Darwinism, where you jump from one side to the other.
Nitro Circus is coming to Australia. Head to nitrocircus.com. Upgrade your Ford.
Blanking tariffs. Does that mean he's going to charge every country tariffs?
By 4 with Edit. For work, play, and better journey.
We all have individual sleep cycles, comfort preferences, support requirements. Often
Origin makes moving easy. Get half-price internet for 6 months when you move or switch your energy.
Her husband, one of these women's husband, actually lost her faith. And I'm going to explain what's really going on here. Let me play this clip from Jacqueline Glenn. She actually shows the clip in it. Let me show you this.
They're deconstructing. Call it whatever you want, but I think they're on the fast track to atheism. Just kidding. I don't think that's actually going to happen. But they are both deconstructing. Even.
So this term deconstructing. So this is a loaded term. This, I feel like, is a devilish strategy. So this sounds like something the devil would come up with. They're not deconstructing their faith. They're deconstructing, and the word deconstructing doesn't really. So let me explain this. They're changing their mind about something in Scripture. That doesn't mean you're losing your faith. It just means you're changing your mind. You realize, oh wait, I was wrong about this. Oh, I'm going to change my mind on it, right? So I find that really interesting because, again, that comes back to that strategy of keeping people in the wrong no matter what. The devil wants you in the wrong no matter what. Either think wrongly in the church or be in the world. One of the two. He doesn't want you to think right. He doesn't want you to change your mind on it and stay in the faith. He wants you to deconstruct and go all the way to the other side where you're off track again. No matter what, you're going to be off track. That's what he wants. That's the goal. That's the goal in this.
Bethany verbalized that word before, which I think is pretty big.
And yes, I am deconstructing certain parts of my faith, but I personally am still.
So this guy here is her husband, and apparently he became an atheist. Again, he believed, and this is very interesting because these guys in the period.
Praise for your daughter, Shawnee.
There's a guy that wrote a book called "I Kiss Dating Goodbye." He also left the faith. Again, the reason why is because they think they're right about what they think. So they come up with this. They come to their faith. They become a believer. They have all these ideas in their heads because they think they know everything, and then they find out they're wrong. And then they're like, instead of thinking, well, maybe I was just wrong about what I'm teaching and not wrong about the faith, they just said, well, I was just wrong altogether. And now they think they're right again. I'm outside the faith. I know everything. So they're know-it-alls that don't know anything. Sophisticated. Sophomores. I was going to say the word moron. You know what I mean.
Amen.
So
amen.
They always think they know everything when they don't. And they're not willing to admit that they don't know what they're talking about. And this is what's happening in the church. So let me show you the kiss dating goodbye guy. And this guy, I used to talk against him 15 years ago too, and then he lost his faith. Let's see, and dating goodbye. Here we go. Yeah, this book. Joshua Harris is the guy's name. I did a video on this many years ago as well. Joshua Harris. Let me type in his name. Joshua Harris. Okay. Let's see what's going on with this guy. Did he change again or something? Let's see what's going on. Is a former evangelical minister, pastor. Yeah, he used to be one. Now he's all about the rainbows and everything, friends. Exactly what the devil wanted. False doctrine in the church. Just jump over to the other side. That's what he wants every time. Don't follow the Pharisees because the Pharisees are off track. Just go and be a pagan. Oh, the pagans are off track. Oh, I got to go back to God. Well, the only ones you got is the Pharisees. The devil wants either you to be a Pharisee or a Sadducee. Nothing else. That's all he wants. That's how he sets the system up. So you never are on track, never know what you're talking about, never grow in your faith because you don't know what you're talking about. And so these women are at least smarter than that. These women actually have brains in their heads. They realize they were wrong and are trying to figure it out. So they're trying to be positive about the SEX topic, not negative like they were before. They realized, wait, we didn't know what we were talking about.
Yeah, Diane, she's got the kennel cough back again. We got honey water for her, but we're taking her to the vet on tomorrow. I think Gabe's taking her.
But we're still right about our faith. We just didn't know what we were talking about at the time. See what I mean? So then we have this lady here talking about all this femmy stuff in the church. Because that's what the biggest problem is. People don't understand this. They put the woman above the man. This is the devil's design. You saw it with Joan of Arc. The first example was Joan of Arc. Became a warrior. And I talked about that before. That was the end of the Middle Ages. That was the beginning of the scientific revolution, the age of enlightenment. We're now enlightened. We got Walmart and Slurpees. And we got women making $43 million a year on a website because guys can't get married. Well, we're so enlightened. We're such a great culture now. When before they were able to get married, they had pictures and paintings of women, of course, without clothes in churches because they knew that it wasn't a sin to think thoughts. That's why they had those paintings in those churches, people. You don't see it ever today, do you? Oh, no, you can't put a picture like that in a church. It's wrong because that's a pharisaical idea. Check out what she has to say here.
And
actually, she's talking about women in the church that she knows personally that used to be into stuff of the world, being with a lot of men, and they still had the same problems even after they become believers. Again, like I said, this woman's lifestyle, even though she's a virgin, very risky lifestyle. She's not going to be the same person, and she's not. It's not easy to change. Even if you become a believer, doesn't mean you're going to change overnight, right? Check out what this lady has to say.
I will talk into detail about real life experience I saw in the church from the quote unquote Christian woman who has some experience like that. And did they truly heal from that, or they heal from their past trauma? That is not even prostitution, it's something much less than that. No. All the women I met in the church, maybe I just don't have a very good experience with church women, but all the women that have some kind of
talking about if they have some sort of background, they tend to be still the same person. Because there's this mentality in the church that, like, if you had this really whatever lifestyle in the past and you get into church, oh, no, I'm just perfect again. I'm perfect. No, it takes years of trying to live for God to change your life. You don't change in a second like that, generally speaking. I mean, there are a few examples, maybe of people changing overnight, but my point is that now what's interesting about this, so I wanted to get into a couple things. So like I said, it's not a sin to be, looking at this woman, but at the same time, she ain't what you would call marriage material either, even though she's a virgin and she has she has some of the check marks. That's why she's making so much money, because the guys want that, but they know they can't have it anyways. So they instead go onto a website.
Shawnee, I don't know. She picks it up for a couple of days and it goes. I don't know if it's diagnosed as kennel cough, but yeah, we'll find out tomorrow.
Sorry.
She's due for a flea shot. We give her a shot so she don't get all itchy over summer as well. So she's due for that tomorrow.
Because they can't get real marriage anymore. Like I said earlier in the video, the irony of our culture. Now, I'm going to show you how this happened. How did the church, where did the church get off track, and how it was prophesied. It was prophesied in the church. Let me show you that. I got it around here somewhere. Here we go. So let me show you this. This is literally predicted in the church, in scripture. I mean, it was predicted by Paul that this would happen. I'm going to show you it and break it down.
Hey, boss, good to see you, mate.
Okay, so first, Paul in 1 Timothy 3 wrote about deacons and bishops must be husbands of one wife. So what this means is that basically he's saying if you're a church leader, you must have a wife, period. Okay, you understand that, right? You get the idea? Minister, deacon, pastor, bishop, whatever, have to have one wife. That's the first thing he said in 1 Timothy 3. Go to the next chapter. Fast forward one chapter, a few sentences later. He says, but guess what? In the later times, some shall depart from the faith, listening to doctrines of devils, forbidding to marry. So he says first, 1 Timothy 3, he says, look, if you're a church minister, you got to be married. But guess what? In the later times, people are going to listen to the devil and they're going to forbid people to marry. That's basically a rundown of what he said there. Guess who forbids to marry? The Catholic Church forbids priests to marry. Now, let me point out something. It says here it came from seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. Well, obviously it came from some sort of doctrine. Where did this concept came from in the Catholic Church? It came from the North African Latin School of Theology, which is headed by St. Augustine. St. Augustine is where all these ideas came from. St. Augustine is the father of theology in the Protestant and Catholic Church. He was a Manichaean Gnostic before he became a Neoplatonist, then he became a believer, a Christian. Okay, so then he brought his ideas from Manichaeanism into the church. And these were the doctrines of the devils that led to forbidding to marry, because he looked at sex as evil implicitly. In reality, this is not the sin. The sin is when you steal, when you do something wrong, like you commit adultery, you're stealing another man's wife. You see what I mean? It's all about theft and taking something. It's not about the sensual stuff. You see what I'm getting at? It's about, are you stealing something? Are you doing something wrong in this respect? This is where everyone misses it. And this is what this theology got into the church and led to the forbidding of marrying in the church. Now, let me show you something interesting about St. Augustine that no one knows, something that I discovered. Guess who St. Augustine was friends with?
So an ad comes up just at that time.
With Vodafone's high-speed home internet plans, you come face to face with speed that'll blow you away. Supercharge your home from just $50 a month for 6 months with the broadband provider of the year, Vodafone.
Say goodbye to expensive scratch repairs once and for all. This groundbreaking car spray will make your car look brand new without costing a fortune.
He was friends with Pope Sixtus III. The word Sixtus means six in Latin. 6 3 times. Pope 6 and another 6. No one knows about this Pope. Why doesn't anybody know about this Pope? That's a pretty interesting name. He was friends with him. He developed a relationship with Augustine of Hippo. They were good friends. Let me show you some other stuff. I didn't even show it on my other video. St. Augustine's where we get all these weird ideas that got into the church about marriage and sex. Let me show you something about this guy. So where does it warn us about this number, 6 and another 6? It tells us about this in Revelation 13. Watch out for the name of this number. It's the number of a man, the number of the beast. Right there. You see that? Let me show you something interesting about Pope Sixtus III. Pope Sixtus III treated nuns as his own harem. I could show you that. There's actually a video here that talks about it. Let me show you something about this guy. So remember it says it's the number of a man. It's the beast. Let me show you something. So Augustine used to, let me show you this. Okay, okay, now Augustine, let me back up here. So Pope Sixtus III used to follow a certain teaching of Pelagius. Let me show you that. Okay, so let's see if I can, does it show it here? Okay, let me show you. I think I closed it. Let me open it real quick. So Pope Sixtus, Pelagius. Let me show you this. Now Pelagius will relate to this beast thing in a second. I'll show you the exact thing. Pelagius. Okay, did I write it right? Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Pope Sixtus III was initially suspected of favoring the heretical doctrine of Pelagianism, they claiming this, but later disappointed Pelagians and condemned them. Let me show you what happened here. So Pope Sixtus III originally followed Pelagius. Then he followed St. Augustine. Pelagius, what does the name Pelagius mean? Pelagius' name means out of the sea. Yes, the name Pelagius means of the sea.
I've got to get some powdered eggs for my prep stash. I don't think I've got powdered eggs.
Let me show you Revelation. The beast rises out of the sea. The beast, Pope Sixtus III, Pope 6 and another 6, rose out of Pelagius, out of the sea. It says here, I saw a beast rising out of the sea. And he went from the teaching of Pelagius to Augustine. Now, Augustine was friends and is the one who changed Pope Sixtus's mind about how to think. And this led into these doctrines of devils from 1 Timothy 4, right here. So it was St. Augustine that led the church into forbidding to marry eventually. It's around 1120 when they started forbidding priests to marry, and they broke up the priest marriages. So this doctrine came from St. Augustine. So the entire church's main father of theology is the one who led to these doctrines of devils, which has led to our culture being so screwed up. Because our culture, if basically this doctrine says you can't, sex is evil. And if you want to have fun, you have to come over here to the devil outside the church. This system was set up by the devil so that everyone's off track, and it causes this huge division in the world where you have the rainbows in the church, always going like this. But if this doctrine was removed from the church, then the whole rainbow thing falls apart. The whole thing falls apart because the church no longer is like SDX is evil all the time. And then the church is more positive about the topic and stop being hypocritical and ridiculous about it. And that leads to honesty, which will lead to this divine sort of healing itself. This is what my theory is on this whole thing. So, and by the way, the Old Testament doesn't teach what a lot of people think regarding ladies of the night. Let me show you this. So here's this verse. A lot of people don't understand how scribes change what it says in the original languages. This text here says there shall be no lady of the night of the daughters of Israel, or men like the same way. Now, if you actually look at the ancient Hebrew, it says female temple lady of the night, male temple lady of the night. It's very, very specific. The words are right here. Let's see if I can pull this up. Right there. Devotee, meaning a temple version. Because if you actually look at the laws of Israel, they allowed them to exist. And they just told them to not give money to the temple because of their practice, what they were doing. And actually, I go through every verse in the Old Testament and New Testament showing how this works, how it fits all together. You have to look at the ancient languages. But, I mean, there's numerous examples. You have Rahab, who, of course, is in the Hall of Faith. She was a lady of the night. You have Tamar playing one to get pregnant by her father-in-law because he refused to do the levirate marriage. I can show you numerous examples of this. Let me show you this. For one, you have King Solomon playing a judge over a court trial between two ladies of the night. Let me show you that one.
Oh, is that Solomon?
Where's that at? I got it around here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. Here it is. 1 Kings 3:16 through 28. Then there came two women that were ladies of the night unto the king and stood before him. And one of them lost, of course, their son. So they both had, each one had a child. And one of them accidentally lost their child overnight. So now they were fighting over the one that was remaining, and he had to decide the case between the two. Notice he didn't send them. You notice he didn't have them, taken out because they were ladies of the night. In reality, they were allowed in Israel. You just couldn't be a temple virgin or a married virgin. That was the main thing. And actually, you can see it even in Proverbs. They use the word harlot when it's referring to a single one, and they use a different word, this word, when they're referring to a married one. And this is what a lot of people don't understand about this. And the word pit is actually the same as well in Hebrew. And they say a woman is a well. So it's very interesting how they do that. I don't want to get into all that here, but there's a lot of this type of stuff. And you even have Samson. I think Samson is a perfect example as well. Let me show you that. Samson, where is that at? I got it around here somewhere. I got so much of it. Okay, let me do it this way. Samson. Oh, here we go.
Wow.
So it's not amazing. Now let's look at Samson's life. The Spirit of the Lord was with him. Second, he slept, of course, with a lady of the night. Then went Samson to Gaza, saw there a lady of the night, went on to her. And by the way, when you look at the passage, he left at midnight and paid her money. So it's not like it's literally what it sounds like. Third, he did not lose God's Spirit until his hair was cut. So he lost his power when his hair was cut, not when he was with a woman. Why is that the case? Because of the Nazirite vow. The Nazirite vow says, he shall separate himself from wine, strong drink, no vinegar of the wine, or neither shall he drink liquor of the grapes, eat moist grapes or dried. All the days he shall separate, eat nothing that is made of the vine of the tree, kernels, even the husk. All the days of the vow of separation, no razor shall come upon his head. A razor came upon his head, that's when he lost his power, because his vow was broken. All right? Not because he was with a lady of the night, but because his hair was cut. There's no requirement of not being with a lady of the night in the Nazarite vow. So I just have to point that out. So it's very interesting looking into all this. The word fornication that everyone uses today in modern English, back in 1611 didn't mean the same thing as it does today. It meant numerous things. Okay, for one, it meant harlot, it meant immorality, but particularly in the Old Testament, the word behind it, named porneia, meant half the time worship of idols.
Pornography.
Half the time. The other half the time it meant immorality, adultery, things of that nature. But today, what are we told the word means? Being with a woman before marriage. That's all it means today. That's a Webster's Dictionary definition, modern day. The word has completely changed its meaning. So today what people do is they read a modern day English translation, they use a modern day dictionary, and then they just try to figure out from that, when in reality what you should be doing is going to the ancient languages, using a very old concordance or lexicon to understand what the original words meant, and then correlating it with the original meanings in the Old Testament, which people don't do that either. So all these words have lost these portions of their meanings in our society because of this concept of defining all sin as being a pleasure or something like this Manichaean idea that St. Augustine brought in, instead of understanding that the sin is when you steal, when you're offending someone, when you're speaking bad words about them, and you hurt their reputation, you take their wife, etc., etc. That's where the sin is, not some sensual thing. So that's and what they did with these words is they removed the original meanings partially, so that you don't know any of this stuff. So, like for example, revelings was a parade unto false gods. Notice idolatry was in a lot of these. Sorcery had to do with using certain pharmakia. Harlotry often had to do with temple worship. onto Aphrodite or Molech. Gluttony is not about eating too much food, really, but it had to do with idols. So this was half the meaning of these words, and it's been completely and utterly lost. And it's because of how they put this slant on the understanding, and it's led to what our society is today. And my point is that, yeah, of course, these lifestyles are not the best, like, this woman being on this website, as I mentioned. But again, she is single, and technically it's not a sin in that respect. But
I can't know why he's defending that. I don't think you can defend that. That one's over, guys. I'm going to do a redacted one, and I'm going to hang up. There it is.
What's gambling really costing you?
Nothing. I don't gamble.
And 279 media and well, here we go, folks. President Trump is dismantling the deep state in real time. We got some bombshell news this weekend that we need to go over. And we're learning that we could be days away from the end of the war in Ukraine, or at very least the framework of what that will look like. No more loss of life, no more money going down the toilet in Ukraine. So some huge developments overnight that we need to talk about today on the show. First,
yeah, my cats meow about 7 o'clock. If I'm not up by 7:30, they jump on the bed, and one of them puts his paw on my lips to wake me up. It's cute, but it's annoying.
Trump's peace plan for Ukraine has leaked on the internet, and it's a devastating blow for Zelensky. Someone in the deep state got their hands on it, tried to embarrass Trump by it, but it didn't work. Actually, it had the opposite effect because it's embarrassing for Ukraine, not Trump. It's embarrassing for the deep state, not Trump. The plan reportedly includes immediate ceasefire negotiations, a total and complete halt to U.S. military aid. We've flushed close to $200 billion down the toilet over the past few years. This would stop immediately. It also includes a power sharing agreement in eastern Ukraine that favors Russia's interests. Now, if this plan is real, and all signs indicate that it is, it means that the war is effectively over and Zelensky is out of moves. Game over, you little cocaine-sniffing troll. You are done.
Goodbye, you cocaine-sniffing troll. I'll play that again.
It is. It means that the war is effectively over and Zelensky is out of moves. Game over, you little cocaine-sniffing troll. You are done. Pack your bags, get out of here, go to jail. Meanwhile, fighting in Ukraine has rapidly declined, and according to Moon of Alabama, something big is coming. All of this seems to be coming together at precisely the same moment. But the biggest sign of desperation? Late Friday night, Zelensky made a frantic offer to President Trump. He's now trying to sell off as much of Ukraine's rare earth minerals as he can in exchange for security guarantees. He knows his days are numbered. He knows he's out of turns. He's scrambling to make last-minute deals to save himself. Here, take our uranium, our tungsten, our copper, and in return, guarantee my safety.
These deposits are priceless. It is huge amounts of money. Huge. That is why we need to protect it. So if we are talking about a deal, that's what the Americans want, then let's do a deal.
Wow. Wow, he's selling off the minerals. I've never seen it. Wow. This guy's off his tree.
We are only for it. Let's do the deal.
And bigger than all of that, White House officials have confirmed that intense peace talks are now underway right now between Trump and Putin. And here's a huge clue that these negotiations are real. Trump just ended Biden's illegal seizure of Russian oligarch assets.
Good.
This is a clear negotiating tactic, in my opinion, with Putin, likely trading something behind the scenes to push these talks forward. What rare earth minerals or energy deals did Trump just secure for the United States? Folks, we're witnessing history in real time. If this war ends, it will be a total humiliation for the deep state, for NATO, and the globalist warmonger machine. But that's just the beginning, because Trump isn't just ending wars, He's dismantling the deep state piece by piece. This weekend, we saw massive moves by the Trump administration to destroy the deep state corruption that's been using your tax dollars to destroy America.
The Doge team discovered, among other things.
Okay, we're pretty sure it doesn't end well with Trump, but at the moment, he's doing some really good stuff. You can't deny that.
Is that the payment approval officers at Treasury were instructed always to approve payments, even to known fraudulent or terrorist groups.
Trump just dismantled Biden's gun control actions, signing executive orders that wipe out unconstitutional restrictions that Biden tried to ram through. And it's not just stopping there. Trump's defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, is launching a full-scale purge of the Pentagon, exposing deep state operatives who've been siphoning off billions of dollars for foreign wars and bureaucratic bloat. And he wants every penny accounted for at the Pentagon. No secret programs, nothing.
What are you?
We are going to focus
for 3 weeks.
To ensure that
She's
at
not
a
even
bare
home.
minimum, by the end of 4 years, the Pentagon passes a clean audit. The American taxpayers deserve that. They deserve to know where their $850 billion go.
Meanwhile, Elon Musk's Doge has uncovered more corruption and wasteful spending yesterday. A mind-blowing $240 million spent on studying transgender animals. Yes, you heard that right. Hundreds of millions of your tax dollars wasted on nonsense, while real Americans struggle to make ends meet. And in a desperate move, the left is now suing Doge, trying to block its access to government payment systems. 14 states have filed a lawsuit to try to shut down Musk's truth machine because they know the investigations into USAID, election interference, and government corruption are about to expose everything. That's why they're freaking out. But it gets even wilder because the latest Doge finding.
I reckon Trump's going to start locking some of these up. I really think he's going to lock some of these people up.
This weekend have blown the lid off of just how much has been stolen from you guys, from us, taxpayers. According to new reports this weekend, over $4.2 billion in foreign aid grants were funneled into shell companies with no accountability, meaning these shell companies could have been using this money to bring child sex trafficking into the United States. Taxpayer money was also used to fund gender studies programs in Pakistan, totaling nearly $200 million in the past 5 years. USAID was also caught funding 73% of all foreign media in Eastern Europe, ensuring that the United States government controlled the news narratives overseas.
Wow.
In fact, we now know this weekend that USAID was funding over 6,200 journalists across 707 media outlets and 279 media NGOs, including 9 out of 10 media outlets in Ukraine. The U.S. controlled the media propaganda around the world. Your tax dollars being used to push anti-Trump media coverage. Your tax dollars being used to push transgender media propaganda, climate change, and war. And Putin was right. Last year, Tucker asked him during that interview why he didn't try to use more propaganda to spread his message. And he said, you can't, because the U.S. controls the media all over the world.
That NATO, the U.S., CIA, the West did this. Why wouldn't you present it and win a propaganda victory?
In the war of propaganda, it is very difficult to defeat the United States because the United States controls all the world's media and many European media.
Wow.
The ultimate beneficiary of the biggest European media are American financial institutions. Don't you know that?
And guess what? The Doge clock, now displaying on the national debt clock, shows that Trump's shutdown of these corrupt programs has already saved taxpayers over $50 billion in just 2 weeks. That's unbelievable. And the deep.
Wow, that is unbelievable. Wow. Spend it on the homeless. They look in terrible plight.
Deep state, they are furious. Like Samantha Power, the head of USAID, the devil incarnate. Listen to her.
Well, you can imagine when you suddenly in your inbox find a termination notice or a leave of absence note.
Did it say you're fired? Like The Apprentice?
This that you didn't expect to get on a flawed predicate that you're doing radical leftist insubordination. It's pretty jarring.
You can almost hear the desperation in her demonic voice, can't you? USAID was one of their biggest money laundering operations, and it's over. Here's how one journalist put it. Here's how to become a millionaire in 6 easy steps. Number 1, become a Democratic politician. Number 2, create an NGO. Number 3, fund the NGO with taxpayer money. Number 4, the NGO pays and protects the politician. Number 5, the NGO gets politician reelected. And number 6, politician becomes a millionaire. Looking at you, Elizabeth Warren. Looking at you, Bernie Sanders. It's worked for so many of them, right, Hillary Clinton? I mean, listen to Democrat Chris Coons on television try to defend that we're spending money to send Sesame Street to Iraq.
This isn't just funding a kid show for children, millions of children in countries like Iraq. It's a show that helps teach values.
It helps teach values? Really? Okay. I mean,
Let Allah look after Iraq. Why don't they go for Allah's help?
Need to pay for Iraqis to learn about Elmo and Big Bird? How about instead we don't create a fake story about weapons of mass destruction and then destroy their country and kill 1 million Iraqis? That might be a better value to export. What do you think? But here's the thing. This whole thing is totally historic. As Mike Benz said in his Friday night interview with Tucker Carlson, this is the first time in American history that the deep state has had to answer to the American people.
This week is really the first time, maybe in American history, with few exceptions, that the blob, the foreign policy establishment that impacts so much of domestic affairs and sometimes controls it, has had to answer to the people that fund it.
I mean, let that sink in for a moment. He's right. The first time in American history. And now it's spreading worldwide. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is watching, from Hungary to Canada, from Europe to Australia. People are demanding their own version of Doge. They see what Trump is doing and they want in. This isn't just a U.S. movement. It's a worldwide revolution. So, guys,
because the whole world was run by the left for about 10 years. And look what happened with its cancel culture and the woke agenda. Thank God Trump came in to stop that.
News update part of today's video. Now you need to pay attention to today's sponsor, which is tied directly to Trump's moves on rare earth minerals, especially in Ukraine, and how it relates to our national security. I mean, Trump is right. Our lack of mining in the United States is a national security risk. So I had to check this. I had to double check this, triple check the following startling fact for you, okay? How in the world has the United States government allowed itself to be this ignorant of the risks and dangers to its national security? There are none, and I mean zero, producing mines of a very critical and crucial rare earth mineral on U.S. soil. This mineral is 100% imported from other countries, and this particular rare earth metal is used for military applications. This is gross incompetence, in my opinion, started back under Bill Clinton. How is it that the U.S. imports 27% of the supply of this metal from China? Seriously. So it's tungsten, okay? Tungsten's unique characteristics make it indispensable in modern industrial, technological, and defense applications. Tungsten is used as a core material in armor-piercing shells and bullets. Its density, hardness allow it to penetrate tank armor and reinforce structures effectively. Tungsten is used in some advanced composite armors for military vehicles due to its ability to basically absorb and dissipate kinetic energy. So for decades, globalization has blinded these politicians in Washington, and the Chinese have become the dominators of rare earth mineral mining. I believe there's never been a better time to hold American-based tungsten stocks. So let's talk about this company, American Tungsten. Here is their ticker on your screen. Now, this is a company that could become the first tungsten producer on U.S. soil. Well, that's right, the first. This comes after decades of zero mining whatsoever, no mining at all. You must research this company as soon as you can, guys. So American Tungsten is only worth $12 million. So in the due diligence I conducted, I found out that rare earth elements are used in so many indispensable items. I mean, the United States faces a critical vulnerability in its dependence on China for rare earth minerals. I simply don't understand how China achieved control.
Wow, look at the different colors on that mountain. That was pretty.
Of approximately 70% of global rare earth production and 85 to 90% of the processing capacity, creating a strategic chokehold on global supply chains. It's totally beyond me. And the dominance isn't just accidental, it has to be intentional. In over decades, China has strategically invested in mining, refining, and exporting rare earths, while undercutting competitors with much lower costs, forcing many U.S. operators to basically shut down. And guess what? It worked. The U.S. now has only one operational rare earth mine. That's in Mountain Pass, California. And get this, it relies on China for refining the ore into usable materials, which is a glaring weakness. They mine it, that they have to ship it to China, but it doesn't mine tungsten, though. In a geopolitical crisis, China could weaponize this dominance. It has signaled that they would do this in the past. A sudden supply disruption would cripple U.S. industry.
Okay, so you want us to invest in this tungsten so we can bring down China. I don't think that's going to happen, mate.
Including defense contractors dependent on rare earth elements for missile systems, jet engines, advanced electronics. Transitioning to domestic production is slow and costly, leaving the United States highly exposed. So this rare earth dependency risks becoming a national security crisis of unparalleled magnitude. There are no producing tungsten mines on U.S. soil. Zero. So American Tungsten seeks to become the first tungsten producer on U.S. soil. Just so you understand, this company, American Tungsten, is advancing a significant North American past-producing mine in a region with minimal environmental and regulatory barriers compared to overseas competitors. The company's flagship asset used to be the 5th largest operational tungsten mine in the United States. Now, the company plans to put it back into production. What's incredible is that the market cap is $12 million today. And the historical high-grade mine and drilling results, when compared with other developers who are racing to be first movers, are a much more compelling IMA mine. I don't know if there's another mineral or metal so essential that the Department of Energy deems it as critical. The U.S. produces none of it, importing it by the boatload from China. And I could be a shareholder of the first mover in the mining of it in the United States. So the Department of Energy classifies tungsten as a critical material, recognize its strategic importance to national security, clean energy, and the high-tech industry. Now, tungsten has the highest melting point of any metal. It's extremely dense and it's hard. These characteristics make it indispensable for applications that require high heat resistance, durability, and strength. So guys, do your homework on American Tungsten, okay? Right now, its market cap is only $12 million. All the while, there are no other companies in the United States which have a realistic path to start production, as far as I know.
Okay, guys, I'm out. See you tomorrow. God bless.
No, faster than this company, American Tungsten. Think about the potential.
I've got to take it back so the photo gets taken of him.
The largest operational tungsten mine in the United States. Now, the company plans to put it back into production. What's incredible is that the market cap is $12 million today. And the historical high-grade mine and drilling results, when compared with other developers who are racing to be first movers, are a much more compelling IMA mine. I don't know if there's another mineral or metal so essential that the Department of Energy deems it as critical. The U.S. produces none of it, importing it by the boatload from China. And I could be a shareholder of the first mover in the mining